Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Mastered the Secret of Uzumaki Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
As Naruto waited outside the reception area to see his teammate Sasuke Uchiha, the Konoha General Hospital was bustling. The announcement that the third part of the Chunin exams would not start for another month came just a few hours after the second part of the exam. It was to give the exams genin time to polish their abilities and become experts in their techniques in preparation for their impending battle. Additionally, it gave the village of the Hidden Leaf time to get ready for the dignitaries who would be attending the exam. As a kind of entertainment and to assess the prowess of the revered village's shinobi, Naruto was overjoyed to have advanced from the preliminary round into the championship match. He had a promise to keep, which was the main reason he was eager to fight his opponent at the same time. He was present for the preliminary match between Hinata Hyuga, a former classmate, and Neji Hyuga, her clan-related cousin. He had witnessed how Neji had made fun of her timid and meek demeanor throughout the match, making her feel incompetent and despondent and encouraging her to give up. He didn't see her bravely battle her cousin until he yelled words of encouragement to her. Though she persisted in trying to stand back up, in the end it was clear that she lacked the necessary skill and she was ultimately defeated. If the proctor hadn't stepped in, Neji would have killed her. Watching her get up in spite of everything that had happened to her had ignited something inside of Naruto. And when that Neji guy would not stop criticizing her and saying that she was destined to lose, it infuriated him. Thus, he pledged to vanquish him and demonstrate to him that destiny does not exist. Even so, he was aware that he needed to strengthen his current skill set. Particularly after they battled the strange guy with the snake in the forest, who somehow damaged him and disrupted his chakra. He thus asked Kakashi Hitaki, his sensei, to help him become stronger so that he could exact revenge on Hinata, and was pleasantly surprised to find him. In the reception area, Naruto yelled loudly, "What do you mean you won't train me?" as the one-eyed, silver-haired man looked at him idly. The Jonin told his pupil to keep your voice down, Naruto. We're in a hospital after all. The student winced at the receptionist's glare and apologized. And as I was saying, I'm sorry, it's not that I won't, it's that I can't train you right now. I need to focus on Sasuke. Why? Sasuke's plenty strong as it is. I need help now. I'm fighting against Hinata's cousin in a month and I need to get stronger. You have to train me, Kakashi-sensei. I know that, but Sasuke needs my attention more right now. Plus, I found you a tutor to help you get ready, he said, gesturing to a man with a bandana over his head and dark round sunglasses on. He pointed at the man who winced, saying, "Really, this guy? The closet pervert? I could beat him with my sexy jutsu?" Kakashi asked with a raised eyebrow, "Closet pervert?" He screamed at the boy, "That is so rude. I am not a closet pervert." Because of Naruto's positive influence on Konohamaru, Ebisu began to see Naruto as more than just the Nine Tails container, but he still found it annoying that the boy would constantly call him out as a closet pervert. "Kakashi-sensei, why are you putting me up with him? I need you to train me. You're supposed to be my sensei, aren't you supposed to be training all of us?" Kakashi nodded. He didn't realize how much that hurt Naruto, but the blonde didn't show it. "That's true, but right now out of the three of you, Naruto is the worst with basic skills." He tried to explain as Naruto hung his head, listening to his teacher make a weak excuse. "Ebisu is someone I trust that can help you polish up your basics. It would take a month to help you catch up to the others, and with who Sasuke will be fighting in the next round, I need to prepare him instead. So, you're just playing favorites, teach Sasuke all the cool jutsus while leaving me in the dust." Naruto didn't fully understand what was going on, but his young mind didn't register it as he glared up at the man before scoffing, saying, "It's not about favoritism right now. Certain conditions demand my attention, and most of them revolve around Sasuke. I'm not leaving you in the dust, but right now Sasuke needs my help." He yelled, "Whatever, go train Sasuke again, see if I care, but if you're not going to help me, then I'll do it on my own," and stormed out before he could be stopped. Kakashi watched his student bolt, and sighed. As Kakashi glanced at Ebisu, he asked, "Is he going to be alright?" He looked down a little, thinking about his sensei and wondering what he would do at this moment. "He'll be fine. He's young and emotional, He'll understand in time, he said. Especially in regards to his son. I will compensate him later. For now, you should probably go locate him. The Jonin nodded and vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto continued running far away, dodging obstacles in his path. The shopkeepers who mocked him and the villagers who glared at him, along with some of the ninjas who walked by, all showed him contempt. For now, none of that mattered to him. He just wanted to get away from it all and clear his head at the moment. Strangely enough, though, he didn't realize as he ran how far away from the main village he was getting. Beyond anything he had ever ventured before. At last, he stopped to catch his breath. He was holding onto the side of a tree, staring at the ground with his blue eyes, which usually gleamed brightly, slightly dulled. The forest was silent during this moment. His teeth sank in slowly as his fist started to clench. He screamed, "Damn it!" and slammed his hand into the tree. It's always the same thing. Sasuke this and Sasuke that. Sasuke is so much better than you. Sasuke. 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 I'm so sick and tired of hearing the same old crap, he yelled as gripped his hair. He stomped around the clearing, not realizing the ground was beginning to dip. If he's so much better than me, then why does he need all the help? What about me? Why'd I have to get traded off to someone else? He cried. The ground sank a little deeper. But no, it's always the same. The village loves Sasuke, while I get the rough end of the stick. I know he lost his family, and I'm sorry for him, but I never even knew mine. I don't even know if they loved me, or even cared about me. The ground released a small crack. He went on, not noticing the ground lowering as he just vented at the world. I mean, what kind of parents give up their own child to seal away the stupid nine tails? Something wet built up in the corner of his eye, and he screamed. Are they even still alive? Are they dead? Or did they just abandon me once that stupid fox was sealed? The ground gave way beneath him as he cried out to the world. I just want someone who wants to help me. I want someone who cares about me and not pawns me off like a cheap rug. I just want to know if I even matter. Finally, he heard a loud crack and realized that the ground beneath his feet had cracked open, causing him to fall. He cried out, "Oh she!" as he dropped through the opening and hit the earth beneath him. He moaned as bits and pieces of wood and dirt dropped all around him. Ow! He sat up slowly again. What happened? He asked, peering up the hole. Did I just fall through the ground? The darkness that surrounded him was broken by the beam of daylight coming through the opening. He got up and brushed the wood and dirt from his orange jumpsuit, asking, Did I fall into a pit? What kind of idiot puts a pit in the middle of the forest? Looking down, he saw the wooden floorboards beneath his feet and stopped. However, it doesn't appear to be a typical pit. Where am I? He asked, glancing around as his eyes grew accustomed to the darkness. He waved the dust and spider webs away, coughing. What the heck is this place? Cough cough, oh man, it's dusty in here. As he struggled through the darkness in search of a light switch, the lights suddenly burst. He smirked and fished around for the lighter, which he borrowed from the owner of the smoking store who refused to serve him. Dang it. Wait, I think I have a lighter here. He lit the lighter and smirked, saying, Stupid old man. A section of the strange location was illuminated by the small lighter, and he noticed that it resembled a room with a bed, a closet, a tri-pronged kunai hanging off a string, and what appeared to be a large number of sealed-up boxes. He wandered around, looking for a way out, thinking, it looks like a home, but who has a home underground? He grinned and noticed what appeared to be a door. Though it might be a storage area. Oh man, this means I stumbled onto one of those Anbu things, haven't? Geez. I gotta get out of here before the old man gives me another earful. He began to walk, saying, now to get out of here before those Anbu. But then unintentionally knocked over one of the boxes. He trailed off. Oh, man, I'm going to be in so much. He saw a small book with a leather cover on the ground. It was the name written on the cover, particularly the last name, that made him pause, even though it wasn't the book itself. Uzumaki Kashina. Uzu-Maki? But that's my last name? He bowed while he took up the tiny journal. He sensed something different about the leather despite it feeling old and worn. Were there other Uzumakis? Why didn't the old man tell me? He asked, struggling morally with himself while clutching the journal. It's not mine, I should probably put it away, he said, setting it down and making his way out of the room. As the light fell on the name in the small journal, however, his curiosity stopped him in his tracks. He picked up the journal and walked back over. But, I guess one little peek won't hurt. After all, if there was another Uzumaki, maybe it can tell me about my parents. He approached the chair, found a candle, lit it, and took a seat. I turned to the pages of the ancient, tattered journal and started to read. February 15th. Kushina Uzumaki's diary to diary, with love. I have to move from Uzushiogakure to Konohagakure next week, according to Mama and Papa. They claimed that my chakra was unique and that it had to do with Mito Obasama. They only mentioned its importance without identifying what it was. Even though I don't want to leave my house, Mama and Papa think I'll be safer in Konoha because of the ongoing war. To tell the truth, I'd rather have more peace in my life on a daily basis than to worry about the war reaching Uzushiogakure. Who knows, perhaps in the hidden leaf I could be a kunoichi. Would that not be noteworthy? Mama calls, so I have to go. I'll be back later. Naruto's expression showed confusion as he read the words. He read on, the date growing longer. Uzushiogakure? I never heard of such a place. Was there a whole clan of Uzumakis? What happened to it, and why didn't the old man tell me about it? February 25th. Kushina Uzumaki's diary. I arrived in Konoha today and registered at the Ninja Academy. I cried out that I would be the first female Hokage today because I was so nervous. That's why a lot of the other kids teased me. Then they called me Tomato, making fun of my round face and red hair. Though I'll ignore them for the time being, I didn't like that. I don't understand this one student in the class. He got up and declared that he would also become the Hokage. He has an odd appearance and seems like a wimp. I didn't catch his name, but I believe it was Minato or something. I hope it won't be a concern that he makes fun of me. I'm meeting with Mito Obasama tomorrow. I wonder why. It's probably nothing to be concerned about. Naruto remarked as he read on, Minato, where have I heard that name before? There's a bit of gap in this one. March 3rd. Kushina Uzumaki's diary. I apologize for being absent, but I've figured out why I'm here. Though I'm still trying to process it, it appears that I am going to be the next Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. In shock, Naruto almost dropped the journal. What? The 9 tails. But I have the 9 tails, he exclaimed, feeling the spot where the seal should be. He then glanced down at his stomach. In search of answers to his never-ending questions, he exclaimed, but that doesn't make any sense. The 9 tails didn't attack the village until the day I was born. Why was it already here? What else does this say? We share a chakra, so it turns out that Mito Obasama is too old to be the 9 tails Jinchuriki. I've heard stories about the 9 tails, so they must pass it on to me. It is meant to be this terrifying beast that devours everything in its path and murders humans. And I'm meant to hold it within me. To be quite honest, I'm afraid. It was obvious that this Kushina had sobbed while writing it because he noticed patches that appeared to be dried up tear stains. He could immediately relate to her because he knew what she was going through. However, he went on and discovered something. However, Mito Obasama gave me some information that gave me some relief. It is possible to combat the 9 tails' negative emotions, according to her. I'm not sure what she meant when she said that in order to keep our burden from getting too heavy, we must surround ourselves with love and experience love in return. I mean, I know my parents love me, but is that sufficient? Gazing at his abdomen, Naruto conjured up an image of the seal's location. With only a candle for light, he sat by himself in the dark room, asking himself, fill ourselves with love, and be loved? He read on despite his heart, I wonder what that's like. April 4th. Kushina Uzumaki's diary. Well, it was kind of an interesting day. I was being called Tomato Face, and had my hair teased by some of the academy's younger students once more. Usually I could take it, but today I just broke. I was going to make them regret calling me Tomato if that's what they were going to call me. Consequently, I destroyed them, proved to them that they will no longer bother me. They now all flee from me as a result of it, referring to me as the red hot-blooded habanero. It's preferable to being referred to as Tomato Face, after all. Naruto swallowed a little as he visualized himself beating the shit out of every other child who teased her. A girl his age with long red hair. He read on, saying, man, this girl kind of reminds me of Sakura-chan. That's a little disturbing. As I was pummeling them, I noticed that weird kid from class again. The one who had declared his desire to become a Hokage. Minato, I believe? I asked him if he was going to make fun of me too, but he just turned away without saying anything. I believe that he treats me the same as everyone else, which is strange. At this, Naruto arched an eyebrow, wondering who this Minato was that she was referring to. Other than him and the Yamanaka clan, there weren't many blondes in Konoha. So perhaps it was an older person he knew? If the date indicated anything, he saw that the diary stopped at about the age of 12. Journal of Kushina Uzumaki, July 3rd. Hello, I haven't written in this for long. I apologize, but I've been very busy these past few years. I'm officially a kunoichi of Konoha now that I've graduated from the academy, but that's not why I'm writing. I had a terrible experience a few days ago. I was abducted a few days ago by Kumogakure, the village hidden in the cloud, ninjas. When Naruto saw this, he gasped a little and became curious, despite the fact that it was clear she came out on top. They were pursuing the 9 tails that are sealed inside of me as well as my unique chakra. I'll admit that I felt afraid. They entered my house without permission, bound me, and hauled me out of the community. I attempted to resist, but if I resisted, they would hurt me. I tried using my hair to create a trail for someone to follow, but there wasn't much I could do. However, as we continued to travel away from the village, I began to lose hope. However, that's when the person I least expected to save me saved me. He eliminated every Kumo ninja before they could even react, and I wasn't even there to witness it. And I knew it was him. Minato Namikaze, when he came into the light. Namikaze. The Minato Namikaze. The 4th Hokage. She knew the 4th Hokage when he was a kid. Holy crap, Naruto exclaimed. For him, it was a little unclear. He was learning about the man who would become the 4th Hokage and instill the 9 tails in him, which was reason enough for him to detest the man. He continued to respect the Hokage, particularly the 4th, though, at the same time. He wanted to be one someday, after all. He informed me that he found me by following the hair strands I had been leaving behind. He told me that it was one of the first things he noticed about me and that he thought it was beautiful, but I almost didn't believe him because no one from the search team could find them. I questioned him about why he chose to assist me now rather than when I was being bullied. He assured me he didn't need to get involved in those fights because he knew I was a strong person both physically and spiritually. I questioned why this was different now that I'm an outsider and what made it so. You know what he said to me, too? He informed me that he didn't want to lose me in the ongoing conflict between 2 villages. About being an outsider, he replied that since I was a resident of the village, I was already one of them. I thought Minato was an incredible shinobi at that precise moment. I had the impression that I would always be safe with him, and I would want to be by his side. Could it be that I'm developing feelings for him? When this Kushina woman confessed that she was in love with the 4th Hokage, Naruto blushed a little. He was going to put the book down when he noticed something, which was about 15 years later. This is feeling a little personal right now, I should probably stop. Journal of Kushina Uzumaki, July 3rd. Hi there, it's been a long time since I wrote this. Still, I have some incredible news. I am getting married to Minato. Finally, 2 years into our relationship, Minato asked me to marry him. I had never seen a more romantic gesture than this one. We sat atop the head of the Sandaime Hokage after he led me to the summit of the Hokage monument. Up until Minato was able to pose the question, we just sat there and observed the entire village. Of course, I said yes right away. I was impatient, Uzumaki. I couldn't wait. I didn't know the Yondaime was married? Uzumaki impatience? He asked, reading on as the light from the candle flickered. Sadly, I've made the decision to give up on my goal of becoming Hokage. I'm not advocating giving up because Uzumakis don't operate that way. Even though Uzushiogakure has long since been destroyed, I am still officially a citizen of that place because I wasn't born in Konoha, much as I would love for that to change. However, I am a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, and when the time comes, I will be here to help. Naruto grinned a little at this, realizing that she still wanted to defend the village concealed by the leaves even though her dream of becoming Hokage had not come true. And gaining a little additional knowledge about the Uzumaki family. Which got him thinking. What would happen if his goal of becoming Hokage wasn't realized? In addition, I believe Minato has a better chance of becoming Hokage than I ever will. My clan was well known for our sealing prowess, and he demonstrated remarkable mastery of our sealing techniques to earn the title of Seal Master. I felt like I might have given him some advice. Furthermore, he recently received his first Genin team assignment. They are really adorable, and I've met them. All have a lot of potential, in my opinion, to become incredible shinobi. Rin Nohara, Obito Uchiha, and Kakashi Hitaki are their names. Kakashi? Does she mean Kakashi-sensei? I didn't know he was trained by the 4th Hokage. Oh man, that means he must know all the 4th Hokage's secret ninjutsu. Which he's probably just going to teach them all to Sasuke, he grumbled before blinking. He asked, still reading, wait, Sensei had a team. Why haven't we met them? Rin is very adorable. I would want my daughter to be just like Rin if I ever had one. I'm confident she'll maintain order among the other two because she has a sound head on her shoulders. Furthermore, Kakashi is so gifted that even at such a young age, he created Jonin. He seems a bit too serious, though, and I believe he could afford to be a little more carefree. With a look of disbelief, Naruto thought of all the times Kakashi had shown up late with a cheap excuse. And lastly, Obito has a lot of things to work on. Most of the time, he acts like a little half-pint. Though he stumbles a lot, struggles to throw a shuriken, and needs to improve his jutsu setup, he's still my favorite. His gregarious demeanor and upbeat disposition enrich the team and people around him. I would want our child to be exactly like Minato if we ever had children. A youngster who cherishes friendships, is upbeat, and has an unbreakable will. All I want is for this war to end soon. And I hope my kids will be able to learn from them in the future. Naruto was moved by something in Kushina's words, though he wasn't sure why. It was peculiar. It seemed as though she was summarizing the kind of person he was. However, why did reading this journal make him feel both happy and sad, and who was this Kushina Uzumaki? He read on, curious to learn more. Hey, it has been a long time. 2 of Minato's students were killed in action, which was a horrible event. Obito was first, who gave his life at Kanobi Bridge to protect Kakashi from falling debris. Rin died soon after, having been taken hostage by Kirigakure. As per the report, she was compelled to transform into Jinchuriki, the 3 tails, and they intended to activate her as soon as she returned to the village. She was aware of this and gave her life to stop it from occurring. Not since has Kakashi been the same. I have no idea how sad he must be, losing both of his teammates in such a short time. And it's evident that Minato is finding it extremely difficult. It made me think of the moment I found out that Uzushiogakure had been destroyed. All those sacrifices and deaths over a pointless war. I just hope we can take a lesson from this and remember the men and women who gave their lives for Konoha and the will of fire in all circumstances. After reading the final sentence, Naruto bowed his head. He now knew why Kakashi-sensei had never mentioned his former team. After losing them both so quickly, he wasn't sure he would ever want to discuss it. However, it also strengthened his resolve to honor the lives sacrificed by those who died for the village. His mind was still filled with Kakashi's lesson. He began re-evaluating his own objective and said to himself, I guess I still have a lot to learn about being a ninja, huh? Those that break the rules are trash. But those that abandon their comrades are worse than trash. He desired the title of Hokage in order to draw more attention to himself and put an end to the looks he felt from others. Was that, however, sufficient? Is that the true reason he desired or even ought to become Hokage? Upon perusing this journal and learning about the individuals who gave their lives in defense of the village, he questioned whether he was even deserving of attempting to become Hokage. For a moment, memories of Hinata's battle and his teammates' journey to the Wave Country flashed through his mind. He turned to face his vow-making hand. Recalling that both reinforced and reshaped his resolve, he had the impression now that he wasn't going to become Hokage for attention's sake. To defend the people and the village he loved, he was going to have to earn it. In memory of those who gave their lives for the village, he would carry out the task. He grinned at the next few words and carried on reading. December 10th. Kushina Uzumaki's journal. Finally, Minato's dream and mine have come true. He has been dubbed the Yondaime Hokage. Standing in front of the village, he vowed to protect it with everything he had, and he looked so happy and proud. He had finally realized his dream. And I achieved my second goal, which was to wed the Hokage, you know, so that I could prevent Minato from making a foolish decision. At this, Naruto chuckled a little. Not even that's the best news, though, because I was feeling a little under the weather lately. I had assumed it was simply the flu, but every morning the illness persisted. I visited the doctor, and she confirmed something amazing. I am expecting Minato's child. Another set of dried tear marks caught Naruto's attention. However, based on what he read, they were happy tears rather than sad ones. However, it prompted a query. He read on, a strange feeling in his chest. The fourth Hokage and this Kushina lady were going to have a child. But what happened to it? You'd think something like this would have been public knowledge? What happened to the child? The Journal of Kushina Uzumaki, April 3rd. I have chosen to formally leave active duty due to my pregnancy. I maintain my ninja abilities, so don't be concerned about old Kushina becoming outdated. However, Jiraiya-sensei, Minato's former mentor, I like to call him the pervy sage, was here today. I promise that I will never know how Minato escaped being tainted by his perverse influence. He was hoping to see his old student in order to get feedback on a book he was writing, which wasn't one of his usual perverted Ikicha novel garbage. Before turning back to the journal, Naruto wondered, those books Kakashi-sensei reads? As he considered the orange book. Though Minato and I thought it was good, he genuinely thinks it wasn't that good. It was a tale of a ninja who never backs down and never gives up. Our son should aspire to be someone like that. It appears that we are expecting a boy. A tiny baby boy who will continue to fulfill our dreams and aspirations. And now we have the ideal name for our son because of Jiraiya, who we have chosen to be his godfather. The Naruto, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief, he dropped the book and leapt out of the chair, staring at the page with his own name written on it. He shook his head, his hand trembling and his breathing hard. His mind refused to accept the reality, saying, no, 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 that can't be right. It can't be true. I can't. He was the fourth Hokage's son. He was the son of the same man who had unintentionally sealed the nine-tailed fox inside of him and left him to live a life of loneliness and isolation with few people to care for him. And his mother was this Kushina Uzumaki, a member of a vanished Uzumaki clan. But why, if I'm their son, then what? He said, lowering his gaze to the one person who could have known the truth. The one person he repeatedly questioned about his parents and who consistently gave him evasive responses. The third Hokage marching out of the bunker, he grabbed the book and extinguished the candle. He went to face the man who had lied to him for years, his heart still pounding in his chest. Hokage Manor. The Hokage's office. With a sigh, Sarutobi kept filing off the reports related to the Chunin exam. The real enemy of the Hokage title is paperwork. He would never comprehend how the second and fourth Hokages, his predecessors and successors, came up with strategies to defeat the fearsome foe. Along with dealing with the council, who were now advisors to his former teammate, he also had to keep an eye out for Danzo's little schemes, which he was undoubtedly working on. And there's the unsettling rumor that Orochimaru might have come back to exact revenge on the village. If there had been no information indicating Uchiha's return, it would have been assumed that he had received the curse mark. It was troubling that these reports aligned with the Chunin exam. For this reason, he had just given Hayate Gecko the task of observing Kabuto Yakushi, one of the examinees who might be connected to Orochimaru. He was hoping to find something and stop Orochimaru from doing whatever he was planning. Setting down his pen, he sighed and turned to look at the pictures of the previous Hokages. His eyes fixed on the last picture of his successor, snatched away from them far too soon. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Even though his reign was brief, he had shown himself to be more than capable of leading the position, particularly when he gave his life to defend the village against the Nine Tails attack. An incident that remained unsolved. Even though everything was set up to keep the Nine Tails from escaping, there were rumors that someone had disrupted the proceedings and somehow leaked information, allowing the Nine Tails to escape from their previous host. However, why? Why not take the beast with them if they had it? Why is it being released? To ruin Konoha? Much of it remained a mystery, which he hoped Jiraiya would discover while gathering data. His thoughts strayed to Kushina and the child they had left behind, as well as Minato. Both the villages and Naruto's lives had been spared by their offering, but took away from him the parents who would have cherished him. His mother and father had many enemies, but he knew he should tell him about them. They would have done anything to exact revenge on the Uzumaki clan by going through their only child if they had known that the fourth Hokage, also known as the Yellow Flash, had a son and that a true blood son of the clan was still alive. All he could hope for was that Naruto was born with his father's hair, rather than the distinctive red that characterized all Uzumakis. He was going to keep him safe, he had promised. Even if it meant not telling him the truth. His gaze snapped back to reality. Old man. As the door burst open and the boy broke through, trying to get past the two Chunin who were there to protect him. We need to talk, old man. Naruto growled back at one of the Chunin. We told you, you can't come in here, Lord Third is very busy right now. And I told you I don't give a damn. I need to talk to the old man right now. Get your hands off me. Hey. Don't grab there, Naruto yelled. Rubbing his aging forehead, Sarutobi sighed. He turned back to his paperwork, thinking, the boy is too much like his mother than his father. What is it, Naruto? Normally I wouldn't mind the distraction, but I'm a little busy planning the second half of the Chunin exams. Whatever it is you have to talk to me about can wait until after the... It's about my mother, Kushina Uzumaki. He turned back to face the boy, who was glaring at him with a look of betrayal and anger and clutching a small leather-bound book, and felt his heart drop to his stomach at that name. As the Chunin carrying Naruto exchanged confused looks with him, switching between the youthful Uzumaki and the elderly Hokage, he stopped and asked, "Where did you?" With a sigh, the elderly man motioned for them to depart. The Chunins looked perplexed but complied nonetheless as he told them, "That'll be all. I'll take it from here." The boy with blue eyes approached his desk and gave the man a fierce look before the door softly shut behind him. They were silent for a moment, each waiting for the other to say something, up until Naruto pointed to and held up the journal. Sarutobi asked, knowing now his mother's name, he knew he couldn't lie. Is what's written here true? Is my father the fourth Hokage? Which would probably prompt him to inquire about things and make some connections with the other villagers. The old man finally let out a sigh and interlaced his fingers. Yes. With a growl of rage, Naruto gritted his teeth. Apparently, you were aware of my parents' identities all along and chose not to disclose them to me. I've pleaded with you for years to reveal their identities, but all you ever said was that it wouldn't matter. He yelled, slamming his hands on the desk and staring directly at the man he trusted. Well, guess what? It did matter. Why didn't you tell me the fourth Hokage was my father? Why didn't you tell me I wasn't the only one to have the 9 tails sealed inside of me? Why didn't you tell me about my goddamn parents? And why the hell did my father seal the 9 tails inside of me? What else have you been lying to me about? Sarutobi didn't respond, merely listened to the young man venting in front of him. With a sigh, he turned to face the young one. Naruto, it's not as simple as you think. It is simple. It was so goddamn simple. Who were my parents? A simple question you could have answered just as many times that I asked you. Naruto, you have to understand that your parents had many enemies. Your mother's entire homeland was destroyed by a combined effort from 3 other nations. If they had found out that you were their son, they would have done anything to get revenge, even though both of them are dead. Yes, I lied to you about not knowing your parents. But it was for your own good, to keep you safe from those that would harm you. He pointed at the boy. Not to mention you tend to blurt out things that should be secret. You could have accidentally revealed your lineage and painted a target upon you and the village. But I'm not a little kid anymore. I can handle the truth. I haven't even told my own teammates about the 9 tails sealed inside of me, he argued back. Naruto flinched at that. Yet you just barged into my office, screaming your mother's name. I chose to hide your past so that you would be safe. I couldn't risk your safety, or the village's, for the curiosity of a child. He reasoned as Naruto shook with anger until he snapped his head up as tears gathered at the corner of his eyes. While you have managed to keep your Jinchuriki status a secret, that is so you can maintain a normal relationship with your friends. But your lineage, your identity, if it got out, old grudges would target the village. Maybe even spark another war. He stopped and fought back his welling tears. But that's not why I asked you about my parents. I don't care that mom and dad had enemies. I didn't care if they were famous or not, he exclaimed. I just wanted to know something, anything, about them. Something to let me know that they actually loved me and didn't just abandon me as the villagers claim. His shoulders sagged as he hung his head. I just wanted to know that someone out there wanted me. For the first time in years, Sarutobi's otherwise upbeat expression took on a look of pure sadness and hopelessness as he looked at the boy. He had believed that he was protecting the boy by not letting him know about his parents. However, he now understood that its only effect had been to puncture the boy's heart. Which, given that his parents had loved him before he was even born, gave him the impression that he was alone in the world. Especially considering that the villagers shunned him and isolated him. At that moment, he realized he ought to have told him in private, or at the very least, let him know they loved him. Minato, Kushina. I made a terrible mistake, said Sarutobi, starting the boy a little as he stood up and approached him. Naruto, your mother and father, they loved you so much, even before you were born. They loved you with all their hearts, so much that I know they would be so proud of you. All these years I thought I was protecting you for them, but instead, I was protecting myself from guilt. I should have been the one to sacrifice myself that day. At least then you would have had parents that loved you. Instead, I denied you what you truly needed in this world. Naruto felt tears stinging his eyes as he felt warm in the embrace. As he slowly returned the embrace, Naruto said, I hope one day you can forgive me. I'm sorry. For a few minutes, they stayed that way until Naruto pulled away and wiped his tears. The elderly man sadly shook his head and said, Can you tell me about my parents now? I promise I won't tell anyone else. I just want to know what they were like. I can't. Not right now, not while some still would want to hurt you, both inside and outside the village. Naruto hung his head. Naruto nodded and looked up a little. But I will tell you everything you want to know later in private. All right, can I at least find out what my mother looked like? I know what my father looks like, but He stammered as the old man nodded and went to his desk, turning on a secret seal, which yielded a scroll, which he unfolded to reveal a tiny piece of rectangular paper sealed inside. This is it, he said, passing the paper to Naruto, who realized it was a picture. His eyes grew slowly wider as he saw the image of a stunning woman with violet-colored eyes, long, bright red hair, and a kind, warm smile on her face. She definitely looked like she was carrying him, as evidenced by her swollen stomach. His face now matched his mother's name, and he felt little tears welling up in his eyes. I discovered it concealed in this chamber following their demise. Your father genuinely cherished the two of you, Sarutobi remarked, attempting valiantly to conceal the tears streaming down his face as Naruto nodded. May I please keep this? I swear I won't show anyone, he said, getting the old man to nod in response. Naruto nodded and inserted the photo into the journal. Sure, but make sure that no one else sees it. We can't have anyone connecting you two until you're old enough, the man said, being aware that he would protect it. Grandfather, Lord Hokage, he said, offering the elderly man the only deference he had ever known. The third Hokage found it a little shocking. The elderly man nodded and he said, I promise to take care of this. But promise me you'll tell me everything later, okay? He pointed to the journal and said, Deal. Now where did you find this? Oh, I sort of fell into this bunker-looking thing out in the woods. I figured it was one of those ambu sites you told me to stay away from, he explained as Sarutobi nodded. Well, you're partially right, but that bunker was one of your father's. He had some built as a fallout shelter for you and your mother in case something ever happened to Konoha and he needed to get you two to safety. I had all their stuff moved there after their deaths. I'll probably have to get someone to fix it later. Naruto nodded at this. Naruto sneered at this and said, Now, shouldn't you be training? I assume Kakashi has some training plans set up for you. The old man raised an eyebrow. Not really, he's spending all his time training Sasuke again and set me up with that closet pervert, Ebisu. Ebisu? With all due respect, Ebisu lacks the necessary tools to properly train someone like Naruto. For someone of his caliber, his chakra reserves are simply too great to train. Regarding concentrating more on Sasuke, I understand that it's to monitor the curse mark and assist with his Sharingan, but I never would have imagined that Kakashi would be partial. I'll have to speak with him later. I see. Tell you what, I know someone that may be a better fit for you. He was your father's sensei, his name is Jiraiya. At the end, he asked in a slightly aggressive tone, Jiraiya? I just read about him. He was supposed to be my godfather, right? So where the hell has he been? Something that made Sarutobi sigh. Yes, well, there is a reason for that, and I know you two will have some serious catching up to do. Naruto nodded. Naruto nodded, took the book, and headed out the door. But I must warn you, your true heritage must remain a secret. You cannot tell anyone, not even your team. Until I know you can protect yourself. He hesitated as he raised his gaze to the fourth Hokage's picture, feeling uneasy to learn that the man he looked up to and who shaped his life was actually his own father. But he couldn't bring himself to despise him for some reason. The man at the door asked, old man? Is it okay if I occasionally use that bunker? The elderly man asked with a raised eyebrow. He asked, what for? As Naruto gave him an uneasy arm rub. The man nodded and he said, well, I want to look after their stuff, maybe even see if I can learn more about them. I understand, I would let you settle in their old home, but the property was sold off years ago. I'll have the hole repaired by the end of the day. I'll even give you a spare key to the bunker. You may learn more about them, I'm sure it's what they would want. Until then, head out to the hot spring area. If my hunch is right, that is where Jiraiya will be. Naruto nodded as he turned away. And Naruto? He exclaimed, then pivoted to face him. Naruto thought for a moment before saying, don't be too hard on him. There are reasons we kept things from you. Some you may understand, some you may not. But know we did it for your safety. The elderly man sighed and he said, I think my safety is the last thing I need to worry about. I'm trying to be a ninja, right? All he said was, I see, as Naruto walked out of the office and let the elderly man settle into his chair and sigh. He just said, Minato. Kushina. Please forgive me. I will set this right, before going back to work. Hot Springs Konoha. One of the hidden village's primary tourist destinations was the Konoha Hot Springs. Constructed not too long after Konoha, the hot springs were well known for their restorative properties and tranquil setting. Naruto was searching for the man who was both his father's sensei and his presumed godfather when he arrived at this location. He moaned in frustration, man, how the heck am I supposed to find him? She stroked his chin and said, I don't even know what he looks like. Maybe I should have asked the old man for a description in retrospect. With a small laugh, he peered down at the journal tucked inside his jumpsuit. Uzumaki impatience, huh mum? He was interrupted. Okay, let's think, what did mum say Jiraiya was like? Well, she said he was. He turned to spy a man gazing over the hot springs with a perverted expression on his face, but he heard a perverted giggling coming from his right. The man was tall, with a wart on his nose, red markings on his face, and long, spiky white hair pulled back into a ponytail. He had a large scroll on his back and was dressed in a green short shirt, kimono and matching pants, a black belt, arm guards, mesh armor, traditional Japanese wooden sandals, and a red haori with 2 yellow circles on each side. He also had a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil on it. He laughed, oh yeah, this is great material. Hee, while Naruto just stared. Ah, that's correct. Mum called him pervy sage. I understand why. He then gave a menacing scowl and balled his fist. This man is supposed to be my godfather, according to Mum's journal. Is this what he was doing all along? Watching girls closely. As he ground his teeth, he thought bitterly. Then he smiled, conjuring up some nasty notion. He cried aloud for everyone to hear, startling the man and warning all the women. Hey! What are you doing peeking on the woman's bath? In a panic, Jiraiya jerked his head around and hissed, hey! Keep it down you brat. But it was too late because the women noticed. They cried out, what? A pervert, and, kya, and, get that pervert, as various bathroom utensils flew over the wall, being able to secure the Jiraiya. They came running at him, belting him with whatever they had, and he tried to explain, damn it, brat, ladies, please it's all a misunderstanding. Following that, he was left with bruises. A few of the girls thanked Naruto, thank you, so much young man, and he laughed. They thanked him and left him saying, it's no big deal. I was just passing by when I saw him, I'll get rid of him for ya. He thought to himself, he's out cold. Might want to take him far from here, and so he called for several clones and pulled him away from the bathhouse. Prior to dousing the man's face with frigid water. When Jiraiya woke up, he coughed loudly, and Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. He questioned, oi, you dead? As Jiraiya moaned and stood back up. He rubbed his jaw and got back up, muttering, nope. A man of my talent won't go down like this. Plus, their beating is nothing compared to Tsunade's. Then, as he turned to hide his recognition, he saw Naruto. So, that's Minato's kid. He almost looks like him, he mused, feeling a little guilty and nostalgic at the same time. Well, it has been a while, he thought to himself. Naruto arched an eyebrow and said, "So, brat, mind telling me why you just ruined my perfectly good research?" "Research?" he inquired, acting as though he didn't know who he was. "Look to me like you were just peeking on women, ya pervert." He held up a copy of his book and exclaimed, "Huh, far from it, ya brat. For you see I am a writer, not a pervert. And peeping gives me the inspiration I need to write my famous novel." Naruto acted surprised and tapped his fist to his palm, saying, "Oh, my sensei reads that," he remarked. "I think it's just trash anyway. If you're the guy who writes it, you must not be that famous," as Jiraiya recoiled in pain. "Garbage," he exclaimed. "He really is Kushina's brat, oh boy. Inconsiderate of genuine art." As he shook himself out of his daze, he thought. He then began to do a kabuki dance as he struck a pose. "Excuse me, but this is not trash. This is my work of art, my crowning achievement, and I am far from a nobody, you disrespectful little brat. For you see, on top of being a super pervert, I am not just an inspiring writer," he exclaimed. Naruto stared at him before beaming, "Because I am the holy sage of Mount Myoboku. Gamma, the great toad sage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Master Jiraiya," he exclaimed. He asked with enthusiasm, "Oh, yeah, I think I have heard of you. You're supposed to be the man who trained the fourth Hokage, right?" The man nodded and smiled. "Which also means you're supposed to be my godfather, right? Seeing as both mum and dad got my name from your book, right?" he asked as Jiraiya nodded. He looked at the boy in shock before his face grew gloomy and trembling. He was about to say, "What did you just, gaw?" when Naruto grabbed the chance to punch him in the stomach, making the sage bow his head in agony. With the man doubling over, he yelled, "That's what you get for abandoning me." As Jiraiya managed to stand back up, he yelled angrily, "Is this what you've been doing for the past 12 years of my life? Peeking on bathhouses and writing trashy novels? If my parents were here, I'm sure they would give you such a thrashing." With a nod from Naruto, he said, "Wait a minute. You know? But I thought the old man agreed." Showing the old leather-bound book, he exclaimed, "I found out by myself. Thanks to this journal I found about my mother. I also found out that the man who trained my dad was supposed to take care of me in case anything happened to them. Well, guess what? Something happened to them and I haven't seen hide or hair of you for 12 stinking years." He yelled as he then charged at the man. Jiraiya yelled, "Whoa! Wait a minute," as Naruto continued tossing fists at him, but he ducked them. He called forth multiple clones and they tried to dogpile the man, saying, "My parents trusted you, believed in you, and this is how you repay them, by leaving their only child alone to defend for himself." He screamed, "Just hear me out," as he quickly dispelled the clones by swerving around and over them. He became very emotional and yelled, "Shut up! I don't want to hear anything from an oathbreaker like you." The sage was able to gain better balance and repelled his punches and kicks as he yelled, "Where were you when I was growing up?" Jiraiya chose to let him vent and said, "Where were you when I was alone, scared and afraid?" The corners of his eyes started to get wet, and he screamed, "Where were you when I needed someone to tell me I mattered, to tell me I did my best?" His fist grew weaker and slower as they didn't even injure the man. "Where were you when I needed someone to take care of me? Where were you when I scraped my knee, came down with the flu or picked on by other kids?" he exclaimed. His hands were now just pounding on his chest as he began to slowly collapse. "Where were you when I needed you the most? Where were you?" he exclaimed. Jiraiya peered down at the child in front of him, sorrow in his eyes. "Where were you to tell me about my parents?" By now Jiraiya was reduced to a weeping child staring at the small child that was under his care. That day, the guilt he had carried inside of him was greater than the total weight of all the years he had carried it. He gently put his arms around the boy's shoulders and gave him a brief but heartfelt hug. Again serving as a reminder of his lost student, he softly said, "I'm sorry. I truly am sorry, Naruto." The boy listened and held his tongue, but he said, "I know that no words I say right now can excuse me for what I've done. And I have no doubt failed the promise I made to your parents." Holding the boy at arm's length and kneeling down, he said, "But like your parents, I have a duty to the village. To keep an eye out for those that would wish harm upon the home I love. Just as your parents did when the Nine Tails broke free." Naruto looked at the man with tears in his eyes before wiping them away with his sleeve. But I promise you, I will make up for my error and train you to the highest degree. I know it will take a long time before you can ever forgive me, he said. All right, he uttered quietly. It will take a while before I forgive you, but I should at least give you the benefit of the doubt. That's what my parents would do, right? He asked as the man nodded. He questioned, but, can you promise me one thing? As Jiraiya blinked. The man nodded and he asked, can you tell me what my dad was like when he was my age? I will, he uttered as they split ways. He nodded as Naruto asked, now, I suppose I should help you with your training, right? Suddenly recalling his promise to Hinata. Right. I need your help. I made it to the semifinals of the Chunin exam, and I need to beat this guy named Neji. It's kind of a long story, but basically, he said some bullshit, and I need to teach him a lesson, he said as Jiraiya nodded. I see, well, if I recall we have a month to get you trained up for the exam. That's not a lot of time, but I can work with it. Report back here tomorrow and we'll start your training first thing in the morning, he said as Naruto nodded before he glared. Jiraiya laughed and he asked, you're not going to turn up late like Kakashi-sensei, are you? He looked at the boy who nodded and said, no, of course not. Besides, turning up late would not be a good start, huh? He turned around, a perverted smile spreading across his face, and said, now. He said, beaming, I got some pretty ladies to check out, and turned to leave. He asked himself, why does every person I train with always turn out to be a pervert? And then sighed, raising his gaze to the sun that was slowly setting. As he left, he thought to himself, it's getting late anyway, need some good sleep if I want to beat that Neji asshole. Several hours later, after returning to his apartment at last, Naruto turned on the lights in the hallway and just stared at the empty space. As he looked around the house he had called home for the previous few years, the sense of emptiness it exuded persisted. However, he had an instant mental image of entering a caring home. His father was sitting at the table reading a newspaper when his mother welcomed him and gave him a loving pat on the head. Sitting around the table, telling stories about their days and indulging in his mother's homemade cooking, he dreamed of a different life. Tears formed in the corners of his eyes, and he slumped to the ground as the pain in his chest intensified. He let out the pain he had been holding inside for so long, soft sobs coming out of his lips as the walls he had built up over the years finally came tumbling down. Life was unfair and cruel. That was something he had learned early on. However, it appeared that today was both a gift and a curse. He had discovered his loving parents, but they had both been taken away. But now, as he imagined both of his parents cradling him while he sobbed uncontrollably, he felt warm. Life wasn't fair, however, it wasn't as though he would ever give up. He had promised himself that he would become Hokage and that he would never give up. That was his way, the ninja. However, he now also desired to fulfill his parents' dream of becoming a shinobi. To honor the yellow flash and the red hot-blooded habanero of the hidden leaf, and to be the ninja who would inherit their wills and become the orange Hokage. It was how the ninja did it. Sarutobi sighed and turned to examine his mountains of paperwork. Despite his years of experience and commitment to his work, he could not help but detest this horrible paperwork. For the umpteenth time, he asked himself, oh, why couldn't I have retired, chosen someone else to become Hokage and live a more quiet life? That wouldn't be his style, though. Being the village guardian meant watching over everyone and standing your ground against anyone who dared to hurt the leaf. Nobody else would be prepared to take on his fallen student, especially in light of the recent reports of Orochimaru being on the loose, particularly during the Chunin exam. Still, I should have just retired and been done with this infernal paperwork once and for all. I swear it will be the death of me, he joked to himself. Don't say that, sensei, Jiraiya said as he sat on the edge of the windowsill, and he felt the presence of one of his former students. He sighed and said, you've still got plenty more years left in you. Sarutobi sighed. Jiraiya nodded and he said, Jiraiya, it's good to see you again. How have you been? As usual, moving forward, completing this and that, composing my next bestseller. By the way, sensei, he said, extracting a copy of his most recent book from inside his coat. The man took the book despite blushing, and Jiraiya said, here's the next issue, with a slight perverted smile. He said, thank you for the gift, and tucked the book inside his robes while coughing into his hand. Jiraiya nodded as Sarutobi remarked, "I assume you're aware. Orochimaru is on the move." "Yeah, I heard rumors that Snake Bastard was plotting something. The fact he was spotted here in the village again is not a good sign," he said as Sarutobi nodded. He guessed as Jiraiya shook his head, "Yes, we should be careful. I'm sure he plans to attack the village of his old birth, all because I denied him the title of Hokage." Jiraiya attempted to console his sensei, who shook his head, saying, "It was always more than that, sensei, and you know it. Those experiments, his disregard for his fellow ninja or life for that matter, he would have made a terrible Hokage. You made the right choice." More than Jiraiya, he asked himself, and yet I didn't stop him. If I had, maybe none of this would be happening. He could still recall how the old man had spared his once favorite student when Orochimaru had left the village. He asked as Jiraiya nodded, "In any case, we'll deal with Orochimaru when he moves. But right now, I assume you're here about Naruto." Sarutobi nodded as he said, "Yeah, to tell you the truth, I was surprised the kid learned the truth about his parents. So was I, but it seemed that Kushina had inadvertently left a gift behind for her son. I should have known her journal had contained sensitive information that could have leaked out into the open, but after their deaths and with the villages it was after the Nine Tails attack I didn't consider it," he said as he sighed. "Still, Naruto has shown more maturity than I gave him credit for. He took the news better than I expected and seems more driven now to become Hokage, makes me think I should have told him about his parents sooner." He asked as Jiraiya shrugged. "Perhaps I ought to have spent more time with him. But it's too late to undo that now," Jiraiya said, turning to face the picture of his former student. "I messed up, and didn't take my role as godfather more seriously. It's just, every time I looked at him, all I could see was Minato and Kushina, and it hurt," he admitted, as he shook his head. He pondered, "Maybe that is just some lame excuse, and I hope they can forgive me someday," and Sarutobi had the same thought. "In any case, I wanted to talk about Naruto. Seeing as he's going up against that Neji kid in the semifinals, I want to help him get better. Make up for not being there for him when he needed me," he said as Sarutobi nodded. Giving the man Naruto's Chunin exam results, he said, "Good, I think Naruto will need your guidance now more than ever. The young man is not as cool-headed as his father was, but he is just as creative. Not to mention the years he's spent as a prankster have given him a unique cunning neither of his parents had. He tends to charge in, not coming up with a strategy at first but proving to be able to come up with one on the fly. Impressive, but honestly, not Chunin material at the moment," Sarutobi said as Jiraiya nodded as he looked over the file. Sarutobi sighed and he said, "I got that, I've got my work cut out for me, don't I? Despite my best efforts, few would train the boy. Iruka was the only one that taught him anything, but that didn't happen till around Naruto's 3rd year. And with my time being consumed with Hokage duties, there was not much I could do. Not to mention, with Orochimaru supposedly targeting Sasuke, I need Kakashi to train and focus on Sasuke for the time being," he lamented as Jiraiya nodded. His sensei nodded and he said, "Boy, we messed up, didn't we?" As they both gazed at the image of the 4th Hokage, he remarked, "We have. But maybe it's time we righted some of our wrongs, and made sure Naruto fulfills his dream of becoming Hokage like his father." Early in the morning, Naruto's flat. Naruto awoke to a familiar ceiling, his eyes still raw from the tears he had shed all night, and was momentarily confused until he slowly connected the dots with what had happened the day before. Knowing his parents was still a foreign concept to him, so he thought to himself, "Oh yeah, that's right. I found out who my parents were. Wow. That's going to take some getting used to." It was also uplifting to know who his parents were and that they loved him so much. It even made him smile as he gripped his chest. "It's time to go see Pervy Sage, then. I have 1 month to strengthen myself and prove to Neji that he is mistaken about fate and junk." As he rose from the bed and enthusiastically stretched, putting on his orange clothes from the nearest, he said to himself. Even though it was all the stores would sell him, he never really liked it at first because it was all he could afford. In addition, he had a sneaking suspicion that the stores were hoping he would get killed one day for wearing an orange outfit, so he had decided to just wear them and prove them all wrong. But it became more personal to him after he learned that his mother was the red hot-blooded habanero and his father was the yellow flash. Though, he thought to himself, I think I might need to update my wardrobe a little. I can't go around with holes in the back of my pants, as he noticed some of the new holes he had from the preliminary exam. I could possibly use some old clothes that Dad has, he said, grabbing his keys, fastening his pouches to his body, and grabbing his headband to tie it to his forehead. I'll stop by the bunker later and see. His parents had always seemed like a blur or random people to him, but now that he had faces to names, he could finally imagine what a life with them might have been like, and it hurt, but in a good way. They faded before he took out the photo from the journal in his pocket and stared at their faces. He looked at himself in the mirror, momentarily imagining his parents to be behind him, hand on each shoulder as they smiled proudly at him. He promised himself that he would make his parents proud, so he hid the photo in the journal and left the apartment, racing to the waterfall to start his training for the Chunin exam finals. It didn't take him long to arrive at the waterfall, where he saw the white-haired man writing in a small notebook while sitting under a tree. How come you're here? Jiraiya laughed and looked up at the boy as Naruto spoke. Obviously, I promised to make up for a lot of lost time, so arriving late would have been a bad idea, right? As Naruto nodded, he asked. I apologize, I'm just accustomed to Kakashi-sensei arriving several hours late. What then are you going to instruct me in? One of my father's incredible jutsu. One of his extremely covert methods. Oh. Or perhaps his blood-only ninjutsu scrolls, which are his secret knowledge. He began to become enthused about the potential. Water walking. Huh. Jiraiya looked at Naruto and said, water walking, today you're going to practice walking on water. To be quite honest, I was hoping for something a little more amazing. The man laughed and he confessed. You and your mother are remarkably similar. She used to get extremely excited about everything. You should have seen her when she found out she was pregnant, the boy said, trailing off as he noticed Naruto holding onto his chest and feeling warmer than his mother. It was pleasant. Remember that you are still a genin child. You possess more chakra than most people your age and are the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, but you are still at the lowest tier of the ninja hierarchy. It took your father years of training and mastery over the fundamentals before he became the ninja that he was, and he did not become Hokage overnight. Heck, he even combined some fundamentals to craft his strongest jutsu. He crossed his arms and sighed slightly as he said to Naruto, everything begins with little steps. He sighed and said, I guess. Okay. What do I have to do? Are you familiar with the wall walking method? Jiraiya nodded and asked, it's kind of like that, except you're using your chakra to repel yourself above the water's surface rather than to stick to a surface. He went out and walked on the water, explaining, you have to release a constant steady stream of chakra and keep yourself above the water's surface. What I am doing right now is regulating the necessary chakra to keep me balanced. Much like with the tree exercise, too much in the water is blasted off. He said, too little and you sink, as he made his way back to the coast. But first, I must assess your present level of proficiency and determine what I'm dealing with. Tell me, what methods have you tried so far? He inquired. Well, I know the shadow clone technique, some shuriken and kunai skills, the transformation technique and the tree climbing technique, he listed off as Jiraiya. Daden, glancing at him in anticipation of more. And that's it. Jiraiya blinked and stared for a moment before Naruto spoke. Is that all? You're not aware of any other methods? A little confused, he asked. I know how to use the regular clone technique, but I'm not very good at it. For some reason, all of my clones end up looking dead and lifeless. He admitted to his embarrassment before he noticed Jiraiya smack his face with his palm. Pervy sage. Are you serious? Is that all you know? When I was a student, it was expected that a genin must be proficient in both offensive and defensive forms of jutsu in order to pass. What on earth is happening at that school? Oh no. Bringing his hand down his face, he moaned, although I take it that not many people at the academy were willing to teach you. Naruto nodded and sighed as he asked. He rubbed the back of his head and said, yeah, the only one that was willing to teach me was Iruka-sensei, but he was busy most of the time, and I kind of didn't help with my pranks and all. Alright, we have a lot of catching up to do. More than my ability to finish before the finals is likely. Jiraiya motioned for the boy to walk on the water, saying, but for now, let's see if you can master the water walking technique. Naruto nodded and headed toward the water, but before he could get the only item he owned from his parents wet, he stopped and put his jacket and journal on a rock, remembering that his mother had kept a journal. Then he made the familiar hand sign with his hands and directed his chakra toward the soles of his feet, making them repel water as he took a few slow steps and eventually submerged himself, breaking the surface, coughing out some water and returning to shore. Oh no, okay, give it another go. He yelled as he focused chakra again and stepped out onto the water, only to fall in again. Damn it. So he gave it another go. And again, and once more. Jiraiya laughed as Naruto came out of the water, saying, you inherited your mother's stubbornness, I can say that much. However, he could tell right away that there was a problem with the boy's chakra. Oh no, he threw off his shirt and focused again. This time he managed to keep himself afloat, with the water going up to his ankles, as he grinned. Oh yeah, that makes more sense. I told myself before tumbling into the water. Oh no, the boy screamed, Oi, Naruto, as he came out of the water. Come here for a minute, he said, glaring at Naruto as he turned to face him again. I want you to focus your chakra again, he said, confusing the boy as he focused on molding his chakra. As he did so, the 8 trigram seal materialized over the boy's stomach. His eyes narrowed as a new seal appeared over the top. Ah, but someone recently overlapped it with a 5-prong seal. An odd and even number seal explains why it's disrupting the flow of chakra in Naruto's body. No wonder he's having trouble mastering the water technique with this one. But this is rough and unrefined, not Minato's style. No, from the handiwork, this has Orochimaru written all over it. This is Minato's seal. It's just as complex as I thought. Minato must have mastered the Uzushiogakure sealing methods to create this little beauty. Very smart. All right. Old man, are you done? As Jiraiya shook his head, Naruto inquired. He told him, almost, just raise your hands above your head, as Naruto did so. Like this, I guess. Jiraiya nodded and silently called forth the 5-pronged seal release behind his back as he asked. He mentally cried out, 5-pronged seal, release, and plunged his fingers deep into Naruto's stomach, causing the boy to gasp and take off running away from him, the 8 trigram seal remaining in place. Oh my god, curvy sage. How on earth did you do that? As the man raised his hands in surrender, he yelled. Naruto appeared perplexed as he said, relax, I was hitting a series of pressure points in your stomach to help you relax. Now why don't you try it again? Well, alright, it's strange, my chakra feels normal again, he thought to himself as he cautiously stepped out onto the water's surface as Naruto approached the water and focused his chakra on the soles of his feet. Hi, I succeeded. He began to dance on the water's surface and yelled out, I'm so excited. Jiraiya watched with a slight smirk on his face, thinking back to the time he trained the boy's father. Naruto had his heart, even though he wasn't exactly like his father and was more like his mother. All right, enough scheming. He knelt down to the boy and said, now, before I continue training you, let's address something. You know you have 2 types of chakra, right? He questioned, momentarily perplexed before Naruto snapped to consciousness. He put his hands on his stomach and said, yeah, mine and the 9 tails. My mother. She was like me. I mean, she had the 9 tails before me. The man nodded and he asked. Yes, ever since the first Hokage, it has been one of Konoha's greatest and most well-kept secrets. If you have perused your mother's journal, you are aware that you are not the sole Jinchuriki of the Hidden Leaf, but you are not the first either, he uttered, causing Naruto to blink. I'm not. As the man nodded, he asked, startled to hear this. You're right, I really shouldn't be telling you this, but since you now know about your mother's past, I suppose it's the only thing to do. What you have is one of the 9-tailed beasts that are found in every village across the 5 elements. The 9-tailed fox, the strongest of the beasts, is Konoha's. The 9 tails was here long before it managed to escape years ago, despite what everyone believes. The tailed beast's Jinchuriki were frequently employed as weapons against the enemy during the Great Shinobi Wars. However, since it's more peaceful right now, it was decided to keep their existence a secret from the general public. I'm still shocked you learned about it, at least in Konoha, Jiraiya said. I learned about it from Mum's journal. Before me, she was the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Did she ever become proficient in its chakra? Curiosity prompted Naruto to inquire. Not that I know of. Your mother was more akin to the Nine Tails Warden, making sure he never escaped. And before her, Mito Uzumaki, the first Nine Tails Jinchuriki, was a formidable fighter and seal master, though it's unclear if she ever used his chakra. Jiraiya acknowledged that she only found out about Kushina's status after her passing, to which Naruto blinked. Mito Uzumaki, hold on. I seem to recall reading in the journal about her. Was she one of my relatives? Naruto inquired, fascinated that the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, an additional Uzumaki, had appeared before him and his mother. She was, in a sense, the first heiress to the Uzumaki clan and the wife of the first Hokage before they were exterminated in the Third Shinobi War. I therefore have little to tell you. Either way, though, as a Jinchuriki, you can access both the Nine Tails and your own chakra. Those who are tailed beast hosts have strong chakras. However, increased power also increases the need for control. Has the Nine Tails chakra ever seemed to bleed into you? As Naruto pondered, he asked. I believe so. I vaguely recall the missions in the forest and back at Wave Country. Jiraiya nodded as Naruto said, I blacked out and when I came to, the fighting was over. And what was the experience like, and how would you characterize this chakra? He inquired as Naruto considered it. Well, I feel blue in my normal chakra. Though his earliest recollections of using the Nine Tails chakra were hazy at best, he attempted to explain, saying, but this one felt red, and it made me angry, very angry. It makes sense that your father created the seal to only allow a small amount of the Nine Tails chakra to leak out, presumably to allow your reserves to adjust to his chakra. And the tailed beast chakra is strong, as far as I can tell, incredibly powerful. With regret, he said, we need to get you to remaster the basics. I'd like you to try and draw out this chakra, but given your current skills, and my lack of guidance with your education. The fundamentals, there isn't time for that. It's time for me to get stronger. I have to play this guy in the semi-finals, and I can't do that if I have to review the fundamentals. Jiraiya crossed his arms over his chest and Naruto groaned. And precisely whom are you battling? As Naruto shrank until he could recall the name, he asked. He said, a guy named Neji Hyuga, and Jiraiya gave him a nod. He's from the branch family of the Hyuga clan, I've heard of him. He summarized as Naruto clenched his fist. They say he's a genius when it comes to taijutsu, he'd be quite a challenge for you. However, I must defeat him. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at him as he spoke. He hurt his cousin Hinata, and I promised I'd make him pay for what he did, he said. It's intriguing that you are working for the clan heiress in this way. With a slight smile, he asked, do you fancy her or something? He inquired, and Naruto furrowed his brow. What? No, I mean, she's always quiet, a little strange, and she can't seem to look me in the eye without blushing. I believe she may be ill or something. As Jiraiya struck his forehead, he thought to himself. Sage above, grant me courage. Looking to his hand where he had made the blood promise, he grinned slightly and said, but, she didn't give up, no matter how much Neji tried to put her down, and I respect that. The fact that Neji belittled her for it, makes me mad, and I want to prove to him how wrong he is. Thus, in order to defeat him, I must grow stronger. Do you understand what I mean? As Jiraiya nodded, he asked. I get you, okay kid, we'll get you stronger, he said as Naruto nodded. To do this, I'm going to be serious with your training, I'm going to train you to both relearn and master the basics, and get you to gain some control over the Nine Tails chakra, he said as Naruto blinked. Is it possible to gain control? As Jiraiya nodded, he asked. Over time, certain containers have demonstrated the ability to manipulate and utilize the chakra of their tailed beasts. You won't be any different, so in order to help you achieve that, I'm also going to teach you a unique technique, Jiraiya said, making Naruto wide-eyed. A unique method. Fantastic. What's that? The man bit his thumb, smirked, and proceeded to make a series of hand signals, which excited Naruto. Calling in jutsu. Before Jiraiya could climb atop a sizable toad, a seal materialized on the ground and a billowing cloud of smoke burst forth, accompanied by his yell. Whoa! Surprised, Naruto let out a shout. Using the technique of summoning jutsu requires a contract with a specific life form. As Naruto gaped in wonder, Jiraiya gave an explanation. For instance, your father and I both signed the toad summoning contract, which allowed us to summon toads into battle. Very awesome. How does it function? Naruto exclaimed as he asked. The problem is that summons can be used for a wide range of tasks, from combat to tracking. My former teammates used theirs for healing and reconnaissance. The toad extended its tongue to the young Uzumaki and said, to summon these guys, you need to sign your name in blood on this scroll. This guy's job, however, is contract holder. In this manner, you make a deal with these people to call one. Please sign this so that I know how to get in touch with you in an emergency. How can I be reached? Jiraiya held up 2 fingers, and Naruto asked in bewilderment. There is a reciprocal summoning contract. Not only can we call them, but they can call us back. You would be taken to Mount Myoboku, which is where they are located, instead. However, that portion is more complex for your level of training. Nonetheless, you understand that in an emergency, I can get the toads to call for you there. With a slight furrow on his face, Naruto asked. Yeah, kind of, he said, to Jiraiya's sigh and head shake. Naruto nodded and unfolded the scroll, his eyes straying over some of the older names written in dried-out blood before they paused on the last name written. Just sign the contract, and then we can get started on summoning, he told him. His father was Minato Namikaze. Jiraiya noticed Naruto's small, melancholic smile as he stared at the name, his hand brushing against the stained blood, his mind picturing his father's hand being placed upon it. I know that if your father was here today, he'd be proud. Your father was my best student. He was almost like the son I never had, Jiraiya remarked, and Naruto nodded, holding back a tear that was about to fall from his eyes. With a sorrowful smile, Naruto said, it used to hurt not knowing. But now, knowing who they are now, at least now I know that they loved me, Jiraiya resting a reassuring hand on his shoulder. He nodded, bit his thumb, smeared his fingertips, signed his name in blood next to his father's, and touched the paper with his fingertips, completing the contract and joining the Toad Summoning Pact. Kid, they loved you before you were even born, never forget that, he said. All right, let's focus on summoning for the time being. After testing out what you can summon with normal chakra, we'll return to the fundamentals. I want to know 1 defensive jutsu, 2 offensive jutsus, and hopefully how to call a proper toad into battle by the end of the month. Additionally, I'm going to assign you some taijutsu training. It's too late to learn an entire style of taijutsu before the fight, but if you don't just charge your opponent, the judges will think you did your research. Another area you'll need to improve is your strategy. The old man told me you had a tendency to charge in. But we'll work on that. He has noticed that you frequently devise original solutions on the spot. We will also work on you accessing the 9 tails chakra on top of everything else. Do you have all that? The top of Naruto's head was steaming when Jiraiya asked. Haha, he stated with a certain amount of assurance, yet it seems like a lot. Well, your father did more than that before he became Hokage, so you have to be prepared to work hard, he said as Naruto nodded. He then bit his thumb, mimicked the hand signals, and slammed his palm to the ground while yelling, I know, there is no easy path to becoming Hokage. Summoning jutsu. A thick plume of smoke emerged, only to expose a tiny tadpole. Quote. Before the little flopping tadpole went back to its home, Jiraiya and Naruto both looked at it with twitching eyes. As Naruto hung his head in shame, Jiraiya said, this is going to take a lot more work than I thought, but at least now we know where you are, at the beginning. Naruto looked up a little, hopeful, and Jiraiya tried to cheer him on. Everything has one, and training is no exception. Naruto slumped once more, and he said, although your father did manage to summon a regular toad on his first try. But hey, this is not bad for your first attempt. And your father was a genius in his day. For once, I'll acknowledge that my own abilities were limited to calling forth a tadpole. Now, take a look at me. He greeted them with open arms. A destitute pervert, Jiraiya toppled over, and Naruto chuckled back. An award. An excellent author, too. Well, it's getting late, he yelled as Jiraiya and Naruto both laughed a little. Come on, let's get something to eat, my treat. We'll call it quits for today and pick it up again tomorrow, he said, noticing that the sun was setting. Yes, right now I could really use some ramen. Naruto became excited at the mention of his favorite dish. Aha, figures, you'll have a huge appetite for the stuff if you're anything like your mother, he remarked, watching as Naruto's enormous smile gradually turned into a sad smile. As Jiraiya turned to face him again, he said, Hey, can you tell me more about them? He questioned, and Jiraiya began before nodding. He led the child away, saying, Sure kid, let me tell you about the day they chose the name for you. I was working on this novel and I wanted to show your father. I got the idea from some ramen, and as they made their way back to Konoha, his voice faltered. Naruto never once interrupted, listening intently as he learned more about his parents' personalities and desires for him. This was the first time in a long time that he had paid attention to anything, and how could he not? He was going to learn more about his parents in a single day than he had in his whole life, so there was no way he was going to miss any of it. Later on that evening, gazing up at the moon, Gaara of the Sand found solace in the knowledge that he was once again subject to the curse of being an insomniac, a condition his father had imposed on him ever since he had sealed the one-tailed beast inside of him. The way the seal worked meant that if he dozed off, the beast would take over and he would tear through the village. Naturally, though, when the moon is full, he becomes more nervous. He looked down from his perch to see one of the Otogakur sound ninjas, Dosu, approaching him steadily when he heard someone approaching him. What a shame, do you ever get any sleep? To avoid facing Sasuke in the finals, I was hoping to catch you off guard in your sleep, he said to the red-haired teen, who simply gave him a glare. He said, pulling up his sleeve to reveal his sound gauntlets, I know all about your sand attacks, do you wonder which is faster, your sand or my sound? I have my orders after all. As he got ready to strike, he questioned. Sand started to gather around Gaara, who simply sighed in frustration. You're annoying, the sand growled as it obscured the sound ninja, and he gets more bloodthirsty when the moon is full. Fear echoed through Dosu's spirit as he saw the sand take on a monstrous form, causing his eyes to widen. How on earth are you? All he could say before the sand engulfed him and reduced him to a deformed corpse. Kabuto smirked behind his glasses as he studied the one-tailed Jinchuriki, and Baki watched from a distance, taking in the entire battle from beginning to end. So that's his real identity. Amazing, even though it's just the one-tails, Kabuto said, watching as Baki furrowed his brow on the one visible part of his face. Are you certain this went well? After all, he was your ally, a sound ninja. Baki was a little alarmed by Kabuto's lack of concern for his fellow sound ninja. Baki narrowed his eyes and Kabuto spoke, it's fine. He had outlived his purpose and had no real chance against Sasuke even if he managed to beat Gaara. However, I assumed his intention was to assess Sasuke's potential. As Hayate hid around the corner from the two, Baki questioned. Following the incident at the hospital involving the Anbu guards assigned to protect Sasuke Uchiha, Hayate paid a visit to his sweetheart Yugao to ensure her well-being. Following that, and their moonlit vow, he was assigned to look into the identity of Kabuto Yakushi, the man that Kakashi Hatake had identified as the attacker. He tracked him down to this location, where he appeared to be meeting up with a Jonin from the Sand Village, Baki, and he narrowed his eyes as he hid from the two. Oh, right, so that's no longer necessary. Yep, and now they know I'm a spy for the Sound, Kabuto seemed to proudly admit as Baki looked at the man. I had the task of abducting Sasuke-kun, but I failed, Kabuto admitted as Baki raised a brow. The news is not good. Our plan to destroy the leaf will be effectively thwarted before it even gets started if they discover you're a spy and learn about this meeting. You were meant to be Orochimaru's right-hand man, I thought. However, you were found out and still decided to meet with me, which seems sloppy to me, Baki said, to which Kabuto gave a brief smile before glaring. I informed them of my whereabouts. I was interested in how they would respond and how this information would affect them. Taking Sasuke won't be an issue at all after this, Kabuto told Baki, muttering in irritation. The sand will retreat if it appears that you will fail. Remember that it was you who came to us. The sand will only act in the background, per the Kasage's wishes, Baki told Kabuto, nodding as Hayate became agitated. As he listened on, Hayate thought to himself, not good, and why are the sand and the sound allies? Are you planning an attack? But why? The sand have been our allies for years, how can this be? Here are our plans. My lord recommended that our allies be informed, so please do so. Kabut then handed a scroll to Baki, who nodded. There won't be a turning back once we take action, Kabuto remarked, and Baki nodded. As he got ready to leave, Hayate said, this is bad, I need to tell Lord Hokage. If the sand and sound have allied themselves for an invasion, I need to warn them. To Hayate's dismay, Kabuto abruptly added, it's probably time we tidy up the little spy that's been observing us. Baki gave a shake of his head, and Kabuto said, I'll see what kind they have moving around. No, I'll take care of him. The sand must contribute to the plan as partners. After all, it's just one rat, he said, turning to face Hayate as the sick Jonin's eyes grew wide. With all of his might, Hayate fled, hoping to reach the Hokage's manor or a more populated area so he could alert his fellow ninja. However, Baki cornered him on a deserted rooftop, where they quickly exchanged kunai knife blows until Baki spat sand in his eye, sparing Hayate from any damage as they landed on the desolate roof, holding his blade in its sheath but not drawing it as he and Baki stood at opposite ends of each other. My, Mr. Examiner, why are you outside at this hour of the night? Spying on people you know isn't very polite, Baki scoffed as Hayate gradually pulled out his knife. Cough, cough, this is not good, it seems like I have to fight. Hayate thought to himself as he readied his move. Shadow Clone Jutsu. With that, he was able to call forth 2 clones and they raced in the direction of the Sand Jonin. When Hayate brought his blade down, Baki was able to eliminate the other 2. Leaf style. Dancing of the Crescent Moon. The man was struck in the shoulder by Hayate's blade, but the blow was too light because the blade lodged in the Sand Ninja's flak jacket. I see, so this is the Crescent Moon dance technique used by the Leaf. Hayate's eyes widened as Baki spoke, despite the fact that a blade was stuck in his shoulder. Hayate thought, it won't move, but Baki held his blade with his free hand. Baki gave Hayate a congrats, saying, to master a technique at such a young age is impressive, as he attempted to extract his sword. Baki held up his hand, but the wind gathered around his middle and index fingers. But while a steel blade can be stopped, Baki said, staring into Hayate's eyes. Nothing can stop a blade of wind. Blades of wind tore through Hayate's body before he could even react, and his last thoughts were of his village, his fellow ninja, and his lover Yugao, and how much he hated that he had let them down. The following day, Waterfall. Jiraiya brought a small set of weights, a stack of books, and some training supplies when he met Naruto early in the morning. Naruto questioned, what's all this for pervy sage? While Jiraiya moaned. Jiraiya bemoaned, I wish you wouldn't call me that, as Naruto protruded his tongue. Jiraiya sighed and Naruto remarked, well, don't be a pervert. Even my mum knew you were one. Said so in her journal. Either way, seeing as I want to make up the time we lost and get you ready for the exam, we're taking your training back a bit. Focusing on gaining more control over your chakra, and maybe drill some strategy into that hollow skull you call a head, Jiraiya said as Naruto gained a small tick on his head. Jiraiya shook his head as Naruto boasted, hey, my head is not hollow. I made it to the semifinals, didn't I? Barely. From what I managed to gather, you barely scraped a pass. You didn't understand the point of the written exam was to cheat and use any skill you had for collecting information. You and that Sasuke boy got beat up in the forest by one examinee. Though granted it was Orochimaru, but best he doesn't know about that. And you won against the Inuzuka by farting in his face. Face it, brat, you lucked out. By all accounts you should have lost, or failed after the first part of the exam. He told the young boy as Naruto grumbled and hung his head. But it's not the end of the world, and the finals are where you can turn it around. You just need to show them that you are capable of being a Chunin. And that involves showing strategy, skill and combat ability. Whereas the first two parts of the exam focused on reconnaissance and survival, the final section will be the deciding factor. So we need to take this time to improve upon your weakness, and polish up your strengths. Jiraiya said, going into full mentor mode. Hey, I haven't done this since I was a student of Minato. Naruto felt his brain was about to explode as he picked up one of the strategy books, but to be honest, that kid was so talented he outshone even me in the end. He said, "Aw man, do I have to do this?" And Jiraiya gave a nod. Naruto could only imagine not getting promoted due to his lack of study, so he asked, "If you want to get promoted, yes. Otherwise, if you don't, you might find yourself having to do it again down the line. You wouldn't want that, would you?" He detested studying since he was a small child because he found all those books, lengthy paragraphs, and lectures to be extremely boring. Though, to be fair, until Iruka he had no one to properly instruct him, he never really found the idea all that appealing. But then he recalled the words he had spoken to Konohamaru, and he thought about all his parents had to go through to become shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. There was no getting around being Hokage. Thus, he had to study whether he liked it or not. "Okay, pervy sage. Let's do this. That's the spirit, and don't call me pervy sage. Call me sensei." "Okay, pervy sensei. That's a bet, hey, you little brat." Naruto had only been training for a day when he still couldn't fully summon a toad. Although Minato no longer had the seal Orochimaru had placed on top of him, the boy's chakra control remained inadequate. To effectively summon a toad into battle, the jutsu needed a significant amount of chakra, but only so far. "Summoning jutsu!" Naruto exclaimed, slamming his palm to the floor as a massive cloud of smoke and the summoning seal materialized. But in place of a toad. Naruto bemoaned, still a tadpole, as he and Jiraiya peered down at the tiny tadpole writhing on the ground. Jiraiya shrugged and he asked, "You'd think little guys like these shouldn't be able to be summoned, right?" As the tadpole poofed back to Mount Myoboku, Jiraiya spoke. "A true summoner can effectively call the desired summon they need. But that requires focused and precise chakra control. Until you gain proper control of your chakra, your summon is going to continue to be random." Jiraiya motioned for Naruto to sit down and held up one finger, saying, "But don't take it too harshly, as the old saying goes, Konoha wasn't built in a day. So we just need to keep practicing. Besides, there's more to work on than just your chakra control. First off, your tactics. Strategy is an important part of any battle. By planning, and knowing your opponent's next move, you can effectively control the battlefield. The Chunin exams are more of a simulation of what it's like to be a Chunin. How your decisions will affect how real-life missions will play out. Luckily, because it's only an exam, you've seen how your opponents can fight. In a normal battle, you wouldn't be so lucky. While the old man has told me of your unique ability to come up with effective plans on the fly, it would be more impressive to the judges if you showed that kind of thinking during the finals," Jiraiya told him as Naruto shot up a little. Jiraiya sighed and held up a second finger as he exclaimed, "Hey, I've been reading all those books you gave me. It's not my fault it's all so long and boring. Second, is your chakra control. Despite your large reserves, your chakra control is pretty bad, kid. Not entirely your fault. Lack of guidance and patience can be attributed to me in the academy," he said with a hint of shame in his voice. "But it's also due to your large chakra reserves. The advantage of such larger reserves is that you can use a higher class of jutsu. It's why the normal clone technique doesn't work for you, because you keep overloading the jutsu. But the downside is that having larger reserves means a greater need for control," he emphasized, as Naruto nodded. "Third, is your jutsus. I know you only have the basics. Something I need to talk to the old man about. But at your age, genin should know at least some other jutsus. However, some of them are clan members, so they are more likely to learn from their clans. I can try and teach you other jutsu, but given the time we have left, the jutsu wouldn't be all powerful. And I doubt I can teach you how to change your chakra nature in time to increase their effectiveness." Jiraiya lamented as Naruto raised a brow. He sighed and Jiraiya asked, "Change my chakra nature?" He asked, "Let me guess, you don't know about chakra nature, do you?" To which Jiraiya rubbed his face and Naruto nodded. He shook his head, "Oh boy, I've got a lot to work with." Naruto nodded and he said, "Okay, so you know that chakra is what powers jutsu, yes?" Okay, good. Well, there are 5 basic elements that chakra can be molded into. Earth, fire, wind, water and lightning. Well, people are born with either 1 or 2 of these elements. Until it's tested, you won't know what jutsu you'd be more capable of doing. Say you were born with fire chakra, you would be more capable of changing your chakra into fire, thus making you able to perform fire-style jutsu easier than say water-style. But that's not to say you can learn to use other jutsus, so long as you know the hand signs. It's just more preferred to know how to change your element into that particular nature, and it takes more training. But, as you are right now, I can't teach you any such elemental jutsu until you have a firmer grasp on her basics. He instructed as Naruto looked confused. He remembered Sasuke using fireball jutsu, and Jiraiya sighed. But Sasuke can use fireball jutsus, why can't I? He asked. He more than likely knows the hand signs and practiced that jutsu a lot when he was back in the academy. Plus, given he's a Uchiha, he would have been born with fire elemental chakra, the most common type of chakra nature in the land of fire. So it was easier for him. If I taught you such a jutsu, you'd burn through unnecessary amounts of chakra, he said as Naruto grumbled. He complained, of course, it's for Sasuke, as Jiraiya waved his hand. Jiraiya raised his 4th finger, and Naruto became excited. Relax, brat, I can still teach you a few non-element based jutsus, like ones that involve your shadow clones, which appears to be your specialty, he said. He started, and finally, is your temperament, but Naruto tipped his head. Jiraiya sighed, and Naruto asked, his face bewildered, my temper what? Your temperament, your anger. From what I've gathered, you tend to fly off the handle sometimes and charge into a fight without thinking ahead. And seeing how you're revered up to fight this Neji, you're not going to be thinking straight, he stated plainly as Naruto stood up. Jiraiya nodded and Naruto argued, but I have to beat him. He said all those horrible things to Hinata. I can't just let that go. As Naruto appeared perplexed, Jiraiya remarked, and I'm not. I think what you're doing for her is honorable, and kind of cute actually. Naruto felt his blood pressure rise. A young man declaring that he shall battle the one that harmed a beautiful maiden. That's top-grade reading material right there, he said. He bared his teeth and growled, shut it, pervy sage. Jiraiya gave him a serious look. But my main point is that you shouldn't rush into this battle. It's better to approach a battle with a well-thought-out strategy and a level head than one that is tainted by bitterness and anger. Your father was a highly skilled shinobi in the lands because he could maintain composure under pressure. Naruto paused and glanced off into the distance, seemingly able to make out his father's head in the Hokage monument. He sighed and folded his arms as he sat down, saying, my dad, huh? So strange to hear that. He said, I guess you've got a point, pervy sensei, as Jiraiya nodded. However, the pervy sensei remark caused his eyelid to twitch. I'll disregard that, but don't worry. If everything goes according to plan, I think you can defeat Neji in the finals and show him that fate is not as final as he believes it to be, Jiraiya remarked, smirking to himself that Naruto was supposed to be the child of prophecy, according to the Toad's prophecies. All right, so what do I do now? He inquired, while Jiraiya hummed to himself. Naruto began, then scrunched his face in concentration. Well, the first thing you need to know is your opponent. What can you tell me about the Hyuga? He asked. Well, they're a clan with, the Byakugan, Naruto blurted out, referring to the wrong clan. Jiraiya corrected him, Byakugan, and Naruto nodded. He tried to recall Kurenai's or was it Shino's explanation during Hinata's match against Neji. All right, and they can see chakra, I think? Correct, the Hyuga clan can see chakra using their Byakugan, a dojutsu that is similar to the Sharingan, but grants them a near 360 degrees field of view and X-ray vision. But not only that, but they can also see the chakra coils within your body and have a unique fighting style that allows them to target the tenketsu in the body. And before you ask, he stopped Naruto from asking. Tenketsu are the chakra points located around the body where chakra can be released, such as your hands and feet. By targeting it with their gentle fist style, they can effectively render a person incapable of using their chakra until the tenketsu are unsealed by a medic. It's what made them one of the best close-range combatants of the Hidden Leaf, he said as Naruto stared. Really? That explains what happened to Hinata, Aw, man. How am I supposed to go up against that? I call Keke Genke's hacks, he shouted as Jiraiya chuckled. He titled his head and said, "Relax kid, the Hyuga clan may be tough, but they ain't invincible. No one is. You just need to think carefully about how to overcome Neji." He asked, "I don't suppose you'd tell me how to beat him?" Jiraiya shook his head in response. He remarked, "Nope, no can do," as Naruto recoiled. Jiraiya nodded and he said, "Huh, but why not, aren't you supposed to train me?" "I am, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give you the answers straight up. The point of the exam is for you to prove your potential as a Chunin. I can help you train and make you stronger, but I can't tell you how to win all your battles. That will be up to you," he said as Naruto stared at him. "That sounded really wise," Jiraiya smirked, and Naruto said. Naruto stared at him before he made a simple hand sign. "Of course it was. I am after all the great and gallant Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. My wisdom knows no bounds, so sorry kid. But you're going to have to figure it out on your own," he said. "Sexy jutsu. Gallant huh?" Naruto put his hands together and changed into a sultry female version of himself, causing Jiraiya to bleed profusely and almost take off. Jiraiya returned to Naruto as Naruto changed back, saying, "More like perverted if you ask me." He marveled at the perverted ninjutsu and said to Naruto, "He, interesting jutsu kid, though I doubt it will work on this Neji." Then a dark thought crossed his mind, wait. If Kushina was alive right now and she saw jutsu, so he didn't need to finish the sentence. Anyway, let's return to your instruction. The finals are in just 28 days. Not much time, but that's not a concern for us. He waved a tiny leaf over Naruto's forehead and said, "Now, let's concentrate on some of the chakra control exercises." Naruto craned his eyes to the leaf. "Huh, you seem to recognize it, huh? It's known as the leaf concentration method. I take it that you heard about this at the academy?" He questioned as nervous laughter burst from Naruto. Jiraiya sighed and he said, "Yeah. The thing is, I didn't pay attention when Iruka-sensei tried to teach it to me." He rubbed the bridge of his nose and said, "You are not making this easy kid. Alright, so you essentially need to direct your chakra toward that leaf and make it adhere to your forehead. It's a technique to help you concentrate both mentally and more on your chakras. Which, based on what I've observed over the last few days, is pretty dispersed," he remarked, to which Naruto angrily clicked his tongue. "Chick. I'm not that dim-witted, pervy sage," he bellowed. "I told you not to call me that anymore. Look, we don't have much time," he said to himself as he raised his hands and took a deep breath of calm. "We need to help you become more focused, better master your chakra, and possibly even access the power of the 9 tails." Naruto sighed and cast a downward glance at his stomach as he said, "That's the only way you'll move up the ranks." "Do you think I can learn to control its chakra?" he asked, holding a hand over the seal while contemplating the creature that had essentially forced him into solitude and loneliness. The 9 tails. Jiraiya looked up at Naruto, who was scratching his cheek. "To be honest, I'm not sure, but your father must have believed you would," Jiraiya said, hanging his head. "Otherwise he wouldn't have sealed it in you. You know, your father always had a reason behind everything he did. Made plans and determined what needed to be done. For whatever reason, he trusted you, his son, with the village's future. He was a man ahead of his time. Tells a lot about his faith in you," he said to Naruto, who gave him a gentle smile and a warm feeling in his chest. "Thanks, pervy sage," he said, and Jiraiya just sighed. He was relieved to see the boy a little happier, even though it seemed that his mother's biological characteristics were too strong for him to overcome. "Alright, concentrate on the leaf concentration technique for the next several hours." Naruto nodded as Jiraiya gave her the order. "After that, we'll spend some time working on your taijutsu, then on summoning and finally tapping into the 9 tails chakra." "Alright, hold on. What will you do next?" The man with white hair smiled and asked. With a perverted smile slowly forming on his face, he said, "I'm going to go and do some important research. See you in a few hours, my boy." As he hurried to the hot springs, he exclaimed, and Naruto sighed. Typical, Naruto sighed as he pressed the leaf to his forehead and focused, visualizing his chakra flowing in the direction of the leaf, the way he had directed it to adhere to the tree's surface with his feet. It was difficult for him to stay focused because of his scattered mind and the little noises that kept bothering him, like the birds, the occasional fish that jumped out of the water, and even the tiny critters climbing up the trees. But he sat there among the peaceful sound of nature, the gentle rushing of the stream, and the cool breeze of the spring air silently blowing past him. He persisted in this for an hour before. "Oh no!" Naruto cried out abruptly. "This is so boring." With his hands in the air, he cried out, "Why does this have to be so boring? If I want to be Neji, I should be learning a new jutsu or something," he groaned in complaint. He said, lying flat on his back, "But here I am sitting on my butt trying to make a leaf stick to my head." "But," he suddenly said, peering through the tree leaves to the light penetrating through, "I think Mom and Dad had to do something like this when they were my age. I guess I really shouldn't complain," he bitterly thought, imagining his rival and teammate learning all sorts of new skills while he was stuck relearning the fundamentals. Growling. "Aw man, it must be lunchtime," he sat up, "but I need to continue my training." "Oh," his stomach rumbled suddenly as he stared at it. "Yes, I am aware." He made the well-known hand gesture of crossing his fingers. "Shadow clone jutsu. Alright, head to Ichiraku Ramen and grab some takeout ramen," he shouted as two clones materialize. The clone nodded and he gave the order. "Boss, you did it." The clone turned to leave and uttered those words. "And you dare not consume it," as the Naruto clone glared at him, he yelled. "What? Oh please, hurry up." "Why not? First of all, I am the one who is starving. Second, it would be a waste on you because you're just clones and I doubt you two are able to eat." After saying, "Oh yeah, you got a point," the clone angrily leapt away, leaving the original and the second clone behind. "Thus, what should I do?" Naruto laughed and asked the second clone. "Indeed, I do require some companionship, and who could be a better fit than me?" "That seems a little depressing, doesn't it?" "Yeah." Village of Konoha. Sakura was aimlessly strolling through the village after she had gone to see Sasuke in the hospital only to be told that no guests were permitted. She started reflecting on her performance in the Chunin exam. Sure, she had more control over her chakra than Naruto and Sasuke, but that was only because of how limited her chakra was. She was smarter than Naruto, but he had advanced to the finals, while she had finished in a tie with Ino. And Sasuke, the boy she loved, was acting much colder toward her ever since he had been bitten by that strange guy in the forest. "What's going on with me? When did I become so frail?" As she strolled through the village, she asked herself, "If this continues, I'm going to fall behind seriously." Naruto and Sasuke made it to the finals. She thought back to the Forest of Death, when the curse mark overtook Sasuke and he mercilessly beat up that sound ninja. Sasuke's been acting colder, especially after what happened in the forest. "I used to mock Naruto for being dead last, but lately he's gotten so much stronger. And Sasuke." She looked up at the sky and sighed to herself, "I'm worried about what will happen to him. Perhaps I should focus on improving myself. I've neglected my ninja duties because I've been preoccupied with Sasuke. And Naruto has come so far beyond me that it's almost hard to believe." She recalled all the times Naruto would act haughty or unyielding, considering himself to be a small child in comparison to Sasuke, but she also recalled the occasions when he stood up and demonstrated his bravery and resolve. It was an inspiring thing to her. As she made her way home, she said, "Maybe I've been a bit too hard on Naruto. He's not the same kid we knew from the academy. However, I am not going on one of his dates. My heart still belongs to Sasuke." Just as he was humming to himself, she noticed her teammate wearing his well-known orange jumpsuit. "I'm going to get some ramen." "Ramen?" Sakura let out a sigh and he hummed. When he suddenly spotted her, she said, "Of course," deciding not to bother him. "Ah. Salutations. Sakura-chan." Sakura winced a little at the volume of his yelling of her name, but she simply waved back and grinned. "Hi Naruto. How are you doing? Did you not think you should be training with Kakashi-sensei?" she asked, watching as the boy skipped towards her. As Naruto snorted, she questioned. "No, I have to train with someone else because Kakashi says he's going to train Sasuke. The guy is a complete pervert, that's the only issue." He grumbled a little as Sakura gave a nod. "I understand. Then, why aren't you training at this moment? It's true that the finals are in just 28 days. Tell me you're not being lazy, please." With an angry accusation, she shook Naruto's head. Obviously not, I'm working really hard to improve my chakra control. All I have to do is grab some food and resume training. I need to make that Neji guy pay for what he did to Hinata, he uttered, balling his fist. With the same resolve he displayed when he made the pledge, he uttered those words. Sakura blinked, hiding a smile. It was obvious to her and the other students in her grade that the Hyuga princess had a huge crush on the resident dead last of the academy, but they didn't care because, in Sakura and Ino's words, practically every girl was after the much more handsome and talented Sasuke. Therefore, they didn't mind because they couldn't understand what the shy girl saw in the blonde idiot, although after the wave mission, they could kind of see what she saw: his determination, his loyalty, and his willingness to keep going despite the overwhelming odds against him. How is Hinata doing, by the way? Naruto's no Sasuke, but still, oh well. The least I can do is give her a little help, she mused to herself. Have you visited her yet? As Naruto blinked, she questioned. Oh. No, I haven't had time for training because I've kind of caught up. Why, in your opinion, should I? Sakura felt a blood vessel appear on her head, so she asked him. You idiot, of course. You vowed to exact revenge on her for her honor. And you really shouldn't tamper with a maiden's honor. You fool. The least you could do is make sure she is aware of it. The clone vanished in a cloud of smoke as she proceeded to smash her fist squarely into Naruto's face. What? Sakura blinked, gazing at the location where Naruto was. Wait, that was a clone. So, where is the actual Naruto now? Waterfall. That particular situation, was the first thing that came to Naruto's mind as a wave of information suddenly hit him. He recalled Sakura's fist hitting his face. What the heck? Yelled Naruto and his clone. How come Sakura struck me so violently? Not that I wasn't eager to see her, he bellowed. Yes. Describe it to me. Why must she always be so cruel about it? Naruto nodded, and his clone answered. Then both of them paused and blinked in confusion. Wait a minute. How did we find out that? He turned to face the clone and asked, how did we know Sakura just hit us? Sakura was in the village the entire time we were here, but how did that happen? Naruto asked himself, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Did we simply inherit the clone's memories? Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto asked clone Naruto. Naruto replied, I don't know, the scroll didn't say anything about that, and the clone gave him a worried look. He acknowledged, well, we did kind of skim some parts, as Naruto let out a sigh. Yes, you're most likely correct. Should we ask someone to interpret it for us? Naruto proposed. When Pervy Sage returns, should we question him? Naruto shook his head and the clone inquired. He stopped perverting, and we don't know when he'll return. And as we both know, if I'm thinking about this, I can't focus. Kakashi Seni. The clone proposed, but Naruto sneered. He is somewhere training Sasuke, and I doubt he would inform us of his whereabouts. I have a feeling that he doesn't think we can get past Neji. However, we'll demonstrate to him. Naruto uttered the words resolutely. And the elderly man. He might know what's going on. It was in the Forbidden Scroll after all. The clone proposed to the third Hokage. Perhaps, but I believe we shouldn't worry about him too much. I still find it annoying that he withheld information from us. Not to mention that he would be occupied with exam preparation. Furthermore, I don't think the secretary appreciates us constantly barging in, Naruto remarked. Ebisu, how about that closet pervert? Both Naruto and the clone shook their heads, and the clone asked. No, both of them replied, feeling suddenly insulted in the village after learning that Jiraiya would take care of Naruto's training from the Hokage. As he and the clone searched for someone to question about the shadow clone technique, Naruto said, so, who else could we ask? Bonk. 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 Ding, as Naruto got to his feet, they both exclaimed. Ah, Iruka-sensei. He bet as his clone nodded and then dispelled. He's a teacher at the academy and was the one that let me pass. He must know more about the shadow clone. Running out of the training grounds, he exclaimed, all right. Let's go find Iruka-sensei. Ramen Ichiraku with a sigh of relief. Iruka Amino inhaled the aroma of his freshly made ramen. With paperwork, grades, and the occasional unruly student, it had been a long day. But none of them could match Naruto's level, and for that, he thanked the sage. Konohamaru Sarutobi, one of his students, had grown fond of Naruto's resolve to become Hokage. That's great, but he had regrettably also become proficient in Naruto's perverted ninjutsu. Among the numerous Joker-level jutsu that Naruto had developed in his academy days. Regarding Naruto, there were moments when it was difficult for anyone to accept that Iruka could be so patient and understanding with him. He was viewed as the demon fox by almost all villagers, who held him responsible for the passing of their loved ones, including the parents of Iruka. However, Iruka had long since realized that Naruto was actually just like him. A youngster abandoned by the Nine Tails and without devoted parents. He wanted to support him when no one else would and felt sorry for him. He could still recall being concerned for the young genin after learning that their team's first C-rank mission had escalated to an A-rank mission. Indeed, he demonstrated his growth following the mission, and he was pleased to learn that he had advanced to the Chunin exam finals. He was still concerned about him, though. He didn't really understand it at first, but Naruto was more like a little brother to him, or perhaps more like a son. He was happy for all of his former students who had advanced to the final round at the moment and hoped they would keep moving forward in their quest to become skilled shinobi. Tucci asked his daughter as they prepared the next batch of ramen, "Long day, Iruka? Normally you would only come here with Naruto, or if you've had long work hours. Must be because of the Chunin exams, right?" he asked as Iruka nodded. "Sort of. I'm both worried and proud of my former students. From what I've heard, Shikamaru, Shino, Sasuke and Naruto made it to the finals. I'm not surprised about the first three, but hearing that Naruto made it so far makes me feel proud of him even more," Iruka said as Tucci blinked. Tucci and Iruka laughed together. "Naruto made it to the finals. Well, I'll be. The kid has a knack for surprising people, huh?" He looked at the broth and recalled a lone Naruto. "Yes, I admit I was surprised when Naruto made it past the second stage of the exams. But at this point, I should learn to expect the unexpected from the #1 hyperactive ninja of the Hidden Leaf," he said. Seated on the swing while people steered clear of him. "He's definitely matured beyond my expectations," he said, taking his chopsticks and getting started. "Iruka-sensei!" Iruka yelled, choking a little on his ramen, just as Naruto jumped into the bleachers. Snapping out of his reverie, Naruto ordered ramen and exclaimed, "Iruka-sensei! I need to talk to, oh cool, ramen. Hey old man Tucci. Can I get a big bowl of miso pork?" Iruka remarked, of course, he hasn't grown up that much, to Tucci's amusement. As he and Ayami started working, Tucci exclaimed, "Right, one miso pork, coming up." Naruto smiled and took a seat on the stool. Naruto laughed, hee hee hee. This is going to be so good, since he could already taste the ramen. The owners of the stand, who were aware of Naruto's habits for a long time, quickly prepared the bowl and placed it in front of him. With a smile, Naruto tore apart the chopsticks and devoured the food. Iruka said, Naruto. Didn't you have something to ask me?" as Naruto paused his noodle eating to look at his sensei before his noodles were fully cooked. "Ah, that's right, Iruka-sensei, I need your help." "I gathered that much. What about Naruto?" "It's about my shadow clones." Naruto nodded and he asked, "Your shadow clones?" "Yeah. See, while I was doing the leaf concentration training you taught me, I sent one of my clones here to get some ramen while I trained. But obviously, he never made it. He bumped into Sakura and she decked him in the face because I haven't seen Hinata in the hospital," Naruto explained. Naruto picked at his cheek. "Hinata? Why would you need to visit her in the hospital?" he inquired. See, she lost during her fight against her cousin badly, and he said a bunch of mean things to her. Saying she was weak and pathetic and I didn't like that. So I kind of made a promise I'd prove him wrong," Naruto said as Iruka nodded. As Naruto sneered, Iruka said, "Interesting, I remember Neji from the academy. He was a top student and the rookie of the year like Sasuke was." Naruto shook his head and thought angrily, of course he was. Anyway, Sakura got mad at me and punched me in the face. But the strange thing is I was at the training ground while Sakura and the clone were in the village. So, how the heck did I get those memories? You must know something about that, right? Naruto asked as Iruka blinked. As Naruto scratched the back of his head and looked away sheepishly, Iruka said, "Of course I do. The shadow clone is a jutsu only Jonin and few Chunin could perform. But they aren't fully designed for combat. They were created for reconnaissance. Didn't you read that part in the Forbidden Scroll?" Yeah. See, Iruka-sensei. I kind of skipped some parts. He said, sounding nervous as Iruka let out a sigh. Of course you did. Alright. I guess I might as well give a brief recap. The Shadow Clone Jutsu was created by the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, during the early years of Konoha. Iruka explained. Naruto leaned out and pointed at the stone face of the second Hokage, saying, "The second Hokage? You mean the stone face that's always scowling all the time?" Iruka shook his head at his less elegant word choice and sighed. Yes, Naruto, him. From what I recall, the Shadow Clone works by creating solid copies of the user, splitting their chakra evenly amongst the clones. Normally, a Jonin can only make about 2 to 3 clones because of the rapid depletion of chakra it demands. Not to mention the more clones the user makes, the less chakra they have in their reserves. Iruka nodded as Naruto continued, but I've made hundreds of clones. I've never felt my chakra reserves get low. Well, Naruto, you seem to be able to avoid that effect because you have larger than average chakra reserves. However, it might also be related to. He began, trailing off as Naruto deduced the meaning. The chakra of 9 tails. Anyway, back to the history lesson. The second Hokage created the technique to act as recon, to scout the enemy position or use as decoys and relay the information back to the user without risk of injury to the user. Think of it as a memory transfer from one clone to the original. I'm surprised you didn't notice already? He asked as Naruto thought to himself. Naruto titled his head and guessed, Not really, every time I've used my clones was during fights. I guess I didn't notice because they were all in the same place. But wait, how does this whole memory transfer thing work? Well, I'm not certain, but I believe that whatever chakra remained in the clone that wasn't used, gets sent back to the user. So that chakra carries with it the memories and experience of the clone and gives it back to the user. Iruka guessed as Naruto pondered this. Experience and memories. He said to himself. Iruka paused and said, Hey Iruka-sensei, what would happen if I train with my clones? Well, now, I dunno, Iruka said. Iruka thought for a moment before responding. Something like this hasn't been attempted before, mostly due to the drain the clones have on the user. But, could it be possible? Naruto turned to his former pupil and said, Huh? What are you thinking, Iruka-sensei? Well, this is just a theory, but you have larger than average chakra reserves and insane amounts of stamina. Now again, this is just a theory, but if you trained with a shadow clone, you'd get twice the experience you would have by yourself. That means you could achieve more than a month's training in only a week. Iruka said as Naruto's eyes widened. Naruto exclaimed, Whoa really, that sounds awesome, as Iruka took his hand. Hold it Naruto, as I said, this is only a theory. Something like this has never been attempted before because no one else has had chakra reserves as large as you. It could work, or it couldn't. You would have to test it, or ask someone who knows more about the shadow clones than I do, Iruka said as Naruto thought to himself. He said, raising an eyebrow at Iruka, I see. I guess I'll have to ask Pervy Sage when he gets back. Pervy Sage? Oh, he's my new sensei at the moment. Kakashi sensei is busy training Sasuke at the moment, so Pervy Sage is training me, Naruto said as Iruka said. Iruka scolded slightly as Naruto pouted, I mean who is Pervy Sage, and what have I told you about addressing people? Fortunately, Naruto stopped himself from saying Godfather, but not before he met Iruka's questioning gaze. To treat them with respect. But the guy is a complete pervert. When I found him he was peeking at the women's bathhouse. I can't believe that guy is supposed to be my G-him. Iruka asked, he's your what, as nervous laughter burst from Naruto. Naruto slammed down a few Ryo notes and ran off, saying, my new sensei. Yeah, just my luck. Any teacher I get after you is some sort of pervert. Well, thanks for the meal. Gotta get back to training. See y'all later Iruka-sensei and thanks for the tip. Iruka yelled, wait, Naruto. But he had already disappeared. I swear, that boy, he uttered as he returned to his seat to consume his ramen. He thought about the smile on Naruto's face the night he gave him his headband. That boy, for all he had been through, was alone and lonely in his life because of something beyond his control. He was resolved to become Hokage one day, though, and he persevered in spite of all the odds against him. He said, "Good luck, Naruto, I'm rooting for you," demonstrating his continued faith in his pupil. Afterwards, hours. Waterfall Jiraiya reappeared, his notes clutched in his hand and a happy, perverted smile on his face. He turned to himself as he walked back to the waterfall. That was a good research trip. I'm going to have so much material for my next book. He softly smiled, thinking back to the time he had trained Minato. I guess I should go and check on Naruto. If I had to guess, I'd say he's just about had it learning the leaf concentration technique and wants to try summoning again, he said. He looked up at the sky, wondering if he would live long enough to witness it. That boy is nothing like his father, but he has the same drive as both his parents. I know he'll become something truly amazing someday, he said. He blinked in surprise as he walked back into the clearing and said, "Oh well, no time like the present." Seated beneath the tree, channeling chakra into his leaf, Naruto was surrounded by 20 other clones of himself, all of whom appeared to be using the same technique. The most peculiar aspect, though, was that Jiraiya detected a minute shift in the boy's level of control. It was far better now that he was gone. Though it was still far from mastered, it was a noticeable improvement over when he left early that day. That's odd. How did he get so much better at chakra control in such a short period of time? Was I really gone for that long? Before moving toward the boy, he asked himself this. Naruto opened his eyes and turned to face the man, asking, Naruto, what's going on here?" Naruto turned to his clones and exclaimed, pervy sage. Guess what, you're not going to believe what I discovered. He gave the order, "Okay guys, that's enough," and the clones all nodded. Naruto staggered a little from the information overload. Whoa. Man. I've got to learn to stop to dispel them all at once. He said, "Whoa, you okay there, Naruto? What the heck is going on here?" as Naruto smiled. When he said, "I just figured out a cool new trick," Jiraiya arched an eyebrow. "See, I found out the shadow clones I make give me all their knowledge once they're dispelled." Jiraiya acknowledged, "Yes, I know how the shadow clone jutsu works," while Naruto smiled. "Well, I talked to Iruka-sensei and he figured that if I train with my clones, I gain more experience. That means I can get this chakra control down lickety-split," he said as Jiraiya blinked. "Really? I see, yes that could work. The shadow clones share their experience and knowledge with the original once they dispel. And you can create roughly 100 clones, so if you train with 100 clones a day, you could gain years of experience in a short amount of time, Why didn't I think of this?" Naruto grinned at this. He yelled, "Because I'm awesome," to Jiraiya's dismissal. "Not so fast, brat. Sure, this will help you gain better chakra control, and maybe even help you learn some jutsus before the finals, but this doesn't mean you'll get physically stronger," he said as Naruto raised a brow. What do you mean?" "I mean your physical body won't improve by the clone trick, only your mind will improve. The shadow clone can only pass on the knowledge of how to do things, but your physical body won't change. That will be up to you, putting in the manual hours," he explained as Naruto sighed. Jiraiya laughed as Naruto lamented, "Aw man, and here I thought I was going to be able to do all sorts of taijutsu like bushy brows." "Relax kid, this is a good thing. It means now that training will go a lot smoother now. Heck, now you can catch up on all the stuff you missed out in record time, but that also means I'll have to monitor all of your clones. And then I'd be missing out on my important research. Such a shame." He wept as Naruto raised a brow. Why do the strange people always end up being my teachers? As Jiraiya was getting his act together, Naruto asked himself these questions. Okay, enough of that. Now comes the serious part. We'll set up a series of training methods. For the first part of your training, you will create 150 clones. Each clone will be separated into groups of 50. Each group will focus on certain aspects of your training for 1 full week before moving on to the next phase. Understand? Jiraiya questioned as Naruto nodded. Phase 1 will be on your chakra control and knowledge. Phase 2 will focus on transforming your chakra element. Phase 3 will focus on learning new ninjutsu, and Phase 4 will focus on utilizing them in combat situations. While all this is happening, you and I will practice taijutsu and summoning, as well as attempt to draw upon the Nine Tails' power. I will admit this plan will be hard and strenuous. Think you can handle it? he asked as Naruto grinned and held his fist to the man. Jiraiya smirked as he exclaimed, "Of course, I'm going to become Hokage after all. No way I'd be put off by some training. Now, let's get down to business, kid," he said, giving Naruto a sly smile and a cross-fingered gesture. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. In the interim, Kikyo Castle. A group of Anbu stood guard over Hayate's body, gazing at their fallen comrade. As she looked down at the man, one of them tried their hardest not to get angry or depressed. She bowed and took up his sword while fixing her gaze on the man who had taught her how to use a sword and to whom she had dedicated her heart. She asked, more to herself than to Hayate, as she and the other Anbu members stared at him, "Hayate, how could this happen?" The Anbu member stated, "This is bad. We must inform Lord Hokage," as they unfurled a sizable scroll tarp and sealed the body within. You go, we must." Her voice was emotionless and cold. "I know. We must inform Lord Hokage. This situation is dire," she said. Even though they were shinobi and Anbu Black Ops members, they had to control their emotions even though they knew she was in pain. They bolted from the scene, Yugo vowing in silence to track down and punish the person behind this personal farce, whatever the duration might be.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.